The gun came out the moment Travis Cole shoved through the restaurant doors, his eyes locked on the woman carrying trays near the bar. Lena Hart had 6 months of carefully rebuilt peace shatter in the time it took him to cross the dining room floor. She dropped the glasses. They exploded against marble. Every head in the room turned. But before Travis could reach her, another man stood up from table 12, tall, composed, expensive suit still perfectly pressed, and stepped directly into his path. "You're making a scene in my restaurant," Dante Moretti said quietly. "Leave, now." Travis laughed and raised the gun higher. "If you want to see how this night ends, and whether Lena walks out alive, stay with me until the very last word. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels, and let's begin." Bum. 6 months earlier, Lena Hart had learned that surviving wasn't the same as living. She worked the evening shift at Aurelio's, an upscale Italian place in Manhattan where the wine cost more than her weekly paycheck, and the clientele spoke in hushed tones about mergers, acquisitions, and vacation homes in the Hamptons. The job wasn't glamorous. Her feet ached by hour 3. Her lower back screamed by hour 6. But the tips were decent. The manager didn't ask questions about her past. And most importantly, nobody there knew her real name used to be paired with Travis Cole's in every conversation. Lena Hart. Not Lena Cole. Never again. She'd picked the name Hart because it sounded strong, like something that couldn't be broken twice. The apartment she rented was a 4th-floor walk-up in Washington Heights, barely big enough for a bed and a hot plate, but it had a door that locked from the inside and neighbors who didn't pry. She kept the curtains drawn. She varied her route to work. She paid for everything in cash. The restraining order sat in a folder under her mattress, though she knew from experience that a piece of paper wouldn't stop Travis if he decided he wanted her back. It had been 23 weeks since she'd seen his face. She counted every single day. Work became her anchor. She memorized the menu, learned which tables tipped best, figured out how to smile at customers without it feeling like a lie. The kitchen staff called her Flaca, even though she wasn't particularly thin anymore. She'd started eating again once the panic attacks became less frequent, but she didn't correct them. It felt good to be called something that wasn't said with a fist behind it. Her manager, Tony, was a compact man in his 50s with reading glasses perpetually perched on his forehead. He ran the front of the house like a military operation, efficient, no nonsense, and utterly uninterested in drama. Lena liked that about him. He didn't ask why she flinched when men raised their voices. He just gave her the sections farthest from the bar where the loud drunks congregated. "You're doing good, kid," he told her one night in early March, counting out her tips in the back office. "Customer feedback's been solid. Keep it up." "Thanks, Tony." "You ever think about moving up? Maybe training for bar or floor management?" She'd hesitated. The old Lena, the one who'd started culinary school before Travis convinced her she wasn't smart enough to finish, would have jumped at the chance. But that version of herself felt like someone she'd buried. "Maybe," she'd said. "I'll think about it." Tony had nodded, handed her the cash, and that was that. But the truth was, she didn't let herself think too far ahead. Thinking ahead meant hoping. Hoping meant vulnerability. And vulnerability was how Travis had gotten in the first time. So she worked. She went home. She ate ramen on her fire escape and watched the city lights until exhaustion pulled her under. She avoided mirrors when she could because sometimes she still saw the bruises that had faded months ago. It wasn't much of a life, but it was hers. And then Dante Moretti started coming in. What? She noticed him the first time because he sat alone. Aurelio's wasn't the kind of place people came to eat by themselves. It was date night territory, business dinner real estate, anniversary celebrations with champagne and roses. Solo diners were rare enough that they stood out, and this one stood out more than most. He was late 30s, maybe 40. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved with deliberate precision. Sharp jaw, straight nose, eyes so dark they seemed black in the low restaurant lighting. He wore suits that didn't come off a rack. Custom-tailored, Lena guessed, though she didn't know enough about men's fashion to say for sure. What she did know was that he wore them the way some men wore armor. He always requested table 12. Corner booth, back to the wall, clear sightline to both entrances. He ordered the same thing every time. Risotto ai funghi, no modifications, sparkling water with lime, and a double espresso after. He never looked at his phone. He read. Actual physical books, hardcovers with Italian titles she couldn't decipher. And he watched her. Not in the way men usually watched women. There was no leer, no predatory edge. It was more like assessment, clinical. The way someone might study a painting they were considering purchasing. It unnerved her. The first 3 visits, she wasn't assigned to his section. She'd see him from across the room, catch his gaze following her between tables, and feel the hairs on the back of her neck prickle with unease. She'd duck into the kitchen and tell herself she was being paranoid. Travis had done that to her, made her suspicious of every man who looked twice. But on his 4th visit, Tony put her on the floor's west side. Table 12 was hers. She'd approached with her best customer service smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes but satisfied most people anyway. "Good evening. Can I start you off with something to drink?" He'd set his book down, Il Gattopardo, she noted, though the title meant nothing to her, and met her gaze directly. Sparkling water, lime, no ice. His voice was exactly what she'd expected, low, controlled, with the faint traces of an accent she couldn't place. Not Italian exactly, something older, rougher around the edges. "And I'll have the risotto." "Of course. Anything else?" "Your name." She'd frozen. "I'm sorry?" "Your name," he repeated, as if it were the most natural question in the world. "I've been coming here for 3 weeks. You're good at your job. I'd like to know what to call you." Every instinct screamed at her to lie, to give him the fake name she'd practiced, the one that sounded generic and forgettable. But something about the way he asked, calm, direct, with no underlying threat, made her pause. "Lena," she'd said finally. "Lena." He tested it, the syllables precise. "I'm Dante." She hadn't asked for his name, hadn't wanted it. But now she had it, and that felt like giving him something she couldn't take back. "I'll get your water," she'd said, retreating before he could say anything else. For the rest of that shift, she'd felt his eyes tracking her. Not constantly. He returned to his book, ate his meal, paid his check with a credit card that made no sound when it hit the table, but often enough that she couldn't shake the awareness of being observed. When he left, he'd added a 30% tip, cash, folded under his espresso cup. Tony had whistled when she'd cleared the table. "Somebody likes you." "He's just being generous," Lena had muttered, pocketing the bills. But she knew better. Generosity didn't come with that kind of attention. Dante came back every Thursday. Like clockwork. Same table, same meal, same routine. And every week, Lena served him. And every week, the knot of anxiety in her stomach pulled a little tighter. He didn't push. That was the strangest part. He didn't ask personal questions or try to make small talk beyond the basics. He was unfailingly polite. "Thank you, Lena," when she brought his food. "This is excellent," when he finished. "Have a good evening," when he left. But the attention never wavered. She started to dread Thursdays. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad," Maria, one of the other servers, commented one evening as Lena tied her apron. Maria was mid-20s, quick-witted, and completely immune to workplace stress. "What's wrong? Somebody stiff you on a tip?" "No, just long day." "Uh-huh." Maria wasn't buying it. "This about that guy in 12, the suit?" Lena's hand stilled. "What about him?" "Come on, Lena. He's been coming in for like 2 months now, and he only sits in your section. You noticed that, right?" "He likes the corner booth." "He likes you." Maria grinned. "And honestly, not the worst problem to have. He's gorgeous, rich, clearly, doesn't smell like a creep." "You can't smell creeps, Maria." "Sure you can. They reek of Axe body spray and unearned confidence." Maria nudged her with an elbow. "Look, I'm just saying, if a man who looks like that wanted to stare at me every Thursday, I wouldn't complain." But Maria didn't know what Lena knew, that attention could be a noose, that fascination could curdle into possession, that the men who watched you closest were the ones who hurt you worst when you tried to leave. So Lena kept her distance, polite, professional, and utterly impenetrable, and Dante kept coming back. It was mid-May when things shifted. The restaurant was slammed. Some tech company's corporate event had booked half the dining room, and the kitchen was struggling to keep up. Lena was juggling 6 tables, the printer spitting out orders faster than she could run them, and her feet screaming in her cheap, non-slip shoes. She'd just delivered a round of appetizers to a table of venture capitalists when she felt it, the prickle of awareness that meant someone was staring. She glanced up. Dante. Table 12. He'd arrived early, which never happened, and he wasn't reading, he was just watching. But tonight, something was different. His posture was tense, his jaw tight. His hands, usually relaxed on the table, were clenched. He looked angry. Lena's pulse spiked. She forced herself to finish taking the VC's drink orders, smile and walk, not run, to the kitchen. "Tony," she hissed, cornering her manager near the expo line. "Can you cover 12 for me?" Tony glanced through the doorway toward Dante's table. "What? The regular? Why?" I need a break from that section." "Lena, we're buried. I can't shuffle the floor right now." "Please." Something in her voice made him stop. He looked at her, really looked, and his expression softened. "He giving you trouble?" "No, not exactly. Okay." Tony squeezed her shoulder. "Take your 15. I'll handle 12. Relief flooded through her. "Thank you." She ducked out the back exit into the alley, sucking in air that tasted like garbage and exhaust, but at least wasn't thick with the weight of Dante's attention. She pressed her back against the brick wall and closed her eyes. "You're being ridiculous," she told herself. "He hasn't done anything. He's just a customer." But her hands were shaking. She didn't know how long she stood there, 5 minutes, maybe 10, before the door creaked open behind her. "Lena." She spun. Dante stood in the doorway, backlit by the kitchen's fluorescent glare. He'd followed her. He'd actually followed her outside. "What are you doing?" Her voice came out sharper than intended, adrenaline spiking into something close to panic. He raised both hands, palms out. "I'm not here to frighten you." "Then why are you here?" "Because you looked scared." He stepped into the alley but kept his distance, a careful 5 feet between them. "And I need you to understand something." "I don't need to understand anything. I need you to go back inside." "Lena, stop saying my name like that." "Like what?" "Like you know me." Her breath hitched. "You don't know me. You're a customer, that's it. So please, just go back to your table, finish your meal, and leave me alone." For a long moment, Dante said nothing. He studied her with those 2 dark eyes, and Lena felt stripped bare under the weight of his gaze. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay." "Okay? I'll leave you alone." He took a step back toward the door. "But I need you to hear this first. I'm not what you think I am. You don't know what I think. You think I'm dangerous. You think I'm going to hurt you." His voice was low, steady, maddeningly calm. "And you're half right. I am dangerous. But not to you. Never to you." Lena's throat tightened. "That's what they all say." "I'm sure it is." Dante pulled something from his jacket pocket, a business card, plain white with black text, and set it on the edge of a nearby crate. "I own Aurelio's. Have for 3 years. I bought it because I like the food, and I needed a legitimate investment. I come here because it's quiet, and the risotto reminds me of my grandmother's cooking. I sit in your section because you're competent and you don't hover." She stared at him. "You own this place?" "Tony manages it. I handle the finances." He tilted his head slightly. "I don't make a habit of announcing it. Tends to make the staff nervous." Lena's mind reeled. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I can see you're afraid of me, and I'd prefer you weren't." He straightened, adjusting his cuffs with deliberate precision. "I'm not going to apologize for noticing you, Lena, but I'm going to respect your boundaries. If you want me to request a different server, I will. If you want me to stop coming here entirely, I'll do that too." "You'd stop coming to your own restaurant? If it meant you felt safe at work? Yes." The sincerity in his voice was almost worse than the attention. It meant he was serious. It meant this wasn't a game. "I don't..." She swallowed hard. "I don't know what you want from me." "Nothing." Dante's expression didn't change. "I want nothing from you. But if the day comes when you need help, I want you to know where to find me." He gestured to the business card. "That's my direct line, not the restaurant, not an assistant, me." Then he turned and walked back inside, leaving Lena alone in the alley with her racing heart and a business card she didn't know whether to keep or burn. She picked it up. Heavy cardstock, expensive. Just a name, Dante Moretti, and a phone number. No title, no company, just him. She should have thrown it away. Instead, she slipped it into her apron pocket and went back to work. For 3 weeks, Dante didn't come back. Lena told herself she was relieved. Table 12 went to other customers, a young couple celebrating an engagement, an older businessman who complained about the portion sizes, a trio of women who lingered over dessert and left a mediocre tip. She worked her shifts, collected her pay, and tried not to think about the cards still folded in her wallet. But she noticed his absence and hated herself for it. Tony noticed too. "Your regular drop off the map?" he asked one Thursday, catching her staring at the empty booth. "He's not my regular." "Right. Well, his table's been dark for a few weeks. Thought maybe you'd heard from him." "Why would I hear from him?" Tony shrugged. "You two seemed, I don't know, connected." "We weren't." "If you say so." But the truth, the part she didn't want to admit, was that she had felt something. Not attraction, exactly. Or maybe it was attraction, but buried under so many layers of fear and self-preservation that she couldn't name it properly. Dante had offered her safety, not in a grand, sweeping gesture, but in a quiet promise. "If you need help, call me." And she'd spent 6 months learning not to trust promises. So when the door chimed one Thursday in early June, and she looked up to see Dante walking through it, her first emotion wasn't relief. It was dread, because he wasn't alone. Done. The man with Dante was shorter, stockier, with a scar running down his left cheek, and the kind of eyes that had seen things Lena didn't want to imagine. They moved to table 12 without waiting for a host, and Tony shot Lena a questioning look from across the room. She forced herself to approach. "Good evening. Can I—" "Lena." Dante's voice cut through her script. He stood, which felt overly formal, and gestured to his companion. "This is Marco. He works with me." Marco didn't offer a hand, just nodded. "Nice to meet you," Lena said automatically, though her instincts were screaming. "We'll have the usual," Dante continued, settling back into his seat. "And Marco will have the ossobuco." "Of course." She scribbled the order, grateful for something to do with her hands. "Anything to drink?" "Whiskey," Marco said. His voice sounded like gravel scraping glass. "Neat." Lena fled to the bar. "Who the hell is that?" Maria hissed, appearing at her elbow while the bartender poured Marco's drink. "I don't know. He looks like he eats people for breakfast." "Maria, I'm just saying, your mysterious suit guy shows up with a bodyguard? That's some Godfather shit." "He's not my—" Lena stopped. "Never mind. Just, can you keep an eye on my other tables? I need a minute." "Sure, babe, but if they whack you, I'm taking your tips." It wasn't funny. Lena didn't laugh. She delivered the drinks, took their orders to the kitchen, and tried to focus on her other tables. But her awareness kept snagging on 12, where Dante and Marco spoke in low tones that didn't carry. Halfway through the meal, Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, muttered something to Dante, and stood. "I'll take this outside," which left Lena alone with Dante when she came to refill his water. "You brought a friend," she said, aiming for casual and missing. "Marco's an associate. He looks like he kills people for a living." Dante's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Perceptive." Her stomach dropped. "You're serious?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't deny it either." He set down his fork, wiping his mouth with the kind of deliberate care that made her think he was buying time. "Lena, I told you I'm not what you think I am, but I also told you I'm dangerous. Those things can both be true." "What does that mean?" "It means I live in a world where men like Marco are necessary." His gaze held hers, steady and unapologetic. "And it means that if you ever find yourself in a situation where you need that kind of help, I can provide it." "I don't need—" "You're still afraid." It wasn't a question. Not of me, specifically. Of something. Someone. Lena's throat closed. She wanted to deny it, to throw his observation back in his face and walk away. But the words wouldn't come. "I'm not going to ask," Dante said quietly. "Your past is yours, but my offer stands. The card I gave you, it's real. Use it if you need to." Marco returned before she could respond, sliding back into the booth with the kind of fluid grace that belied his bulk. Lena took that as her cue to leave. She didn't go back to table 12 for the rest of the night. Maria covered their check, collected Dante's absurdly generous tip, and reported that both men had left without incident. He asked about you, though, Maria added, counting bills. The scary one wanted to know if you were okay. What did you say? I said you were fine. Are you? Lena didn't answer. She started carrying the business card everywhere. Not because she planned to use it, but because knowing it was there, folded into the pocket of her jeans, tucked into her wallet, a small, sharp-edged rectangle of possibility, made the world feel slightly less suffocating. June bled into July. The city turned sticky and mean with summer heat. Lena picked up extra shifts to cover the rent increase her landlord had sprung on her without warning. She was working 6 days a week now, sometimes doubles, and exhaustion became her baseline. Dante came back to his regular Thursday schedule. Always alone now, always polite. He didn't push, didn't pry, didn't do anything except exist in her peripheral vision like a promise she didn't know how to accept. And then on a Thursday in late July, Travis Cole walked through the door. She saw him before he saw her. It was almost 9, the dinner rush winding down, and Lena was clearing a table near the front when the door opened and Travis stepped inside. He looked different, thinner, harder. His hair was shorter, his beard grown out in a way that didn't suit him. But his eyes, those pale blue eyes that had once looked at her like she was everything and then like she was nothing, were exactly the same. Lena's entire body went cold. She dropped into a crouch behind the table she'd been clearing, heart hammering so hard she thought she might pass out. He can't see me. He can't see me. He can't... Excuse me. Travis's voice, loud and impatient, cut through the ambient noise. I'm looking for someone. Lena Cole? I was told she works here. Tony's voice, carefully neutral. I don't know anyone by that name. Bullshit. I tracked her phone. She's been here for months. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. Don't sir me. Where is she? Lena's vision tunneled. The restraining order. She had a restraining order. He wasn't supposed to be within 500 feet of her, but paper didn't stop men like Travis. It never had. She fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, pulling up the contact screen. Her finger hovered over 911. Then she remembered the card. If you need help. She switched to her wallet, dug out Dante's number, and pressed call before she could second-guess herself. It rang once. Twice. Lena. His voice low and immediate. He'd saved her number. Of course he had. He's here, she whispered. Travis, he's at the restaurant. He's looking for me. A pause. Then, where are you right now? Hiding, near the front. Tony's trying to get him to leave, but a crash. The sound of something, someone, hitting a wall. Lena, listen to me very carefully. Dante's voice had gone flat, emptied of all warmth. Go to the kitchen. Lock yourself in the walk-in cooler if you have to. Do not come out until I get there. How are you? I'm 2 minutes away. I'm always 2 minutes away. Now move. The line went dead. Lena shoved the phone into her pocket and crawled toward the kitchen, keeping low. She could hear Travis shouting now, Tony's voice rising to match, and then footsteps, fast and heavy, coming toward her section. She abandoned stealth and ran. The kitchen staff barely glanced up as she burst through the doors, her hands already reaching for the cooler's handle. She yanked it open, stumbled inside, and pulled it shut behind her. The cold hit her like a fist. She wrapped her arms around herself, teeth already starting to chatter, and pressed her ear to the door. Muffled shouting, a woman's scream, Maria, maybe. More crashes. And then cutting through it all like a knife, where the hell is she? Travis had made it past Tony. Lena bit down on her hand to keep from making a sound. The cooler's metal walls pressed in around her, the temperature dropping fast, her breath coming in visible puffs. She couldn't stay in here long. 5 minutes, maybe 10, before hypothermia became a real risk. But she couldn't go out there. 2 minutes, Dante had said. It had been at least 3. The cooler door handle rattled. Lena's heart stopped. Lena! Travis's voice, muffled but unmistakable. I know you're in there. Open the goddamn door. She pressed herself against the far wall, as far from the door as the cramped space allowed. You think you can just leave me? File a restraining order and disappear? The handle rattled harder. You're mine, Lena. You don't get to... The sound that interrupted him wasn't loud. It was the absence of sound. The sudden, shocking silence when someone stops mid-sentence, not because they've finished speaking, but because they've been stopped. Then a voice, calm, cold, laced with the kind of quiet violence that didn't need to shout. Step away from the door. Dante. Lena sagged against the wall, relief and terror warring in her chest. Who the hell are you? Travis, belligerent, stupid with rage. The person who owns this building, which means you're trespassing. A pause. It also means I know exactly where the security cameras are, and they've recorded every single thing you've done since you walked in here. I don't give a shit about your cameras. That's my girlfriend in there. Ex-girlfriend, who has a restraining order against you. That's none of your... The sound of impact, fist meeting flesh, was sharp and wet. Travis hit the ground hard enough that Lena felt the vibration through the cooler floor. It became my business the moment you walked into my restaurant and assaulted my staff. Dante's voice hadn't risen, hadn't changed inflection at all. Now you're going to stand up, walk out the front door, and never come back. Or I'm going to have my associate break both your legs and leave you for the police. Your choice. Silence. Then shuffling. Travis getting to his feet. This isn't over, he spat. Yes, Dante said. It is. More footsteps, the kitchen door swinging open and closed, and then, finally, Lena, it's safe. You can come out now. She didn't move. Couldn't move. Her body had locked up, muscles frozen with more than just cold. She was shaking so hard her knees buckled, and she slid down the wall until she was sitting on the freezing floor. The door opened. Dante stood there, backlit by kitchen light, his right hand bleeding from split knuckles. His expression was unreadable. Lena? She looked up at him and felt something inside her chest crack wide open. I couldn't... Her voice broke. He was going to... I know. Dante stepped into the cooler, crouching so they were eye level. But he didn't, and he's not going to. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He held her gaze, steady and certain. Because I'm not going to let him anywhere near you again. It was such an absurd thing to promise, such an impossible, arrogant, ridiculous claim. But the way he said it, like it was already done, already fact, made her want to believe him. Why? She whispered. Why do you care? Dante reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers were warm despite the cold, and impossibly gentle. Because you matter, he said simply. And people who matter shouldn't have to hide in freezers. Lena felt the tears coming and couldn't stop them. They spilled hot down her frozen cheeks, her breath hitching into something that was half sob, half laugh. Dante didn't tell her to stop crying, didn't offer empty comfort or pointless reassurances. He just stayed there, crouched in a walk-in cooler, waiting for her to be ready. When she finally was, he helped her to her feet, wrapped his jacket around her shoulders, and led her out of the cold. Travis was gone. Tony was on the phone with the police, his face grim. Maria hovered nearby, clutching a bag of ice to her wrist where she'd apparently been shoved. I called 911, Tony said when he saw them. They're sending a unit. You okay, Lena? She nodded, though it was a lie. Good. He looked at Dante. Thanks for handling that. I tried to keep him out, but you did fine. Dante's hand stayed on Lena's back, steady. Make sure the security footage gets to the police. All of it. Already pulled it. The police came. They took statements. They asked Lena if she wanted to press charges, as if she had a choice, as if Travis had left her any option except to fight or disappear again. She said yes. Signed papers. Felt numb all the way through. When they finally left, she looked up to find Dante still there. Come on, he said, I'm taking you home. I can get myself... Lena. He cut her off gently. Let me do this. Please. And because she was too tired to argue, too wrung out to protest, she let him. Dante's car was exactly what she expected. Sleek, black, expensive. He opened the passenger door for her like she was something fragile, then slid into the driver's seat and pulled into traffic with the smooth competence of someone who did everything with precision. They didn't talk. Lena gave him her address and then stared out the window, watching the city blur past. When they reached her building, 4 stories of aging brick in a neighborhood that gentrification hadn't quite reached, Dante parked and turned to look at her. "This where you've been living?" "Yeah." He didn't say what she could see him thinking, that it wasn't safe, that the front door's lock was a joke, that any motivated person could get inside without trying hard. "Pack a bag," he said instead. "What?" "You can't stay here, not tonight, probably not for a while." "Dante, I can't just—" "Travis knows where you work, which means he probably knows where you live." His voice was matter of fact, no room for argument. "I have a place. Guest room. Security. You'll be safe there until we figure this out." "I don't need you to—" "Yes," Dante said quietly. "You do." And the worst part, the part that made her want to scream and cry and break something, was that he was right. She couldn't stay here, couldn't go back to work tomorrow without wondering if Travis would show up again. Couldn't keep living this half-life where fear dictated every choice. So she got out of the car, climbed the stairs to her apartment, and packed a bag. Dante's place wasn't an apartment. It was a penthouse in Tribeca, the kind of address that showed up in architecture magazines and real estate porn. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson, the night city spreading out like scattered diamonds. The furniture was minimal, expensive, and somehow managed to feel lived in despite looking like it cost more than Lena made in a year. She stood in the entryway, clutching her duffel bag, suddenly aware of how out of place she was. Her worn sneakers on marble floors, her secondhand jacket in a space that breathed money. "Guest room's down the hall," Dante said, shrugging out of his suit jacket. The fabric was spotted with something dark near the shoulder. Blood, probably. Travis's or his own, she didn't know. Bathrooms attached, clean towels in the cabinet. Lena didn't move. "This is temporary." "Of course. I mean it. I can't just move in here and—" "Lena." He turned to face her fully, and she saw the exhaustion etched into the corners of his eyes. "You're not a prisoner. You're a guest. Stay as long as you need. Leave whenever you want. But tonight, you need to sleep somewhere Travis can't find you. That's all this is." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself, that she didn't need rescuing, that accepting help from a man she barely knew was stupid and dangerous and exactly the kind of thing that got women hurt. But she was so tired. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." Something in his expression softened. "You're welcome." He showed her to the guest room, bigger than her entire apartment, with a bed that looked like it had never been slept in and a view that made her chest ache. Then he left her alone, closing the door with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam. Lena sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. They'd stopped shaking, finally, but she could still feel the ghost of the cooler's cold in her bones. She thought about unpacking, thought about showering, thought about calling her mother, who she hadn't spoken to in 8 months because explaining why she'd left Travis required admitting how bad it had gotten. Instead, she lay back on the bed fully clothed and closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come, but the pretense of it was better than nothing. The knock on her door came 20 minutes later. "Yeah?" Her voice sounded scraped raw. Dante opened the door halfway, holding a mug. "Thought you might want tea, or whiskey. I brought both." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "Tea's fine." He came in, set the mug on the nightstand, and held out a second glass with 2 fingers of amber liquid. "Whiskey's better for shock." "I'm not in shock. You were locked in a freezer an hour ago while your ex tried to break down the door. You're in shock." He waited, patient. "Drink." She took the glass, sipped. The burn was immediate and grounding, cutting through the numbness like a blade. She took another drink, longer this time, and felt her shoulders start to unlock. "Better?" Dante asked. "Maybe." He pulled over the room's single chair, sleek, modern, probably designed by someone famous, and sat. Not on the bed, not too close, just there. "We need to talk about what happens next," he said. Lena's stomach tightened. "You mean with Travis?" "With Travis. With the restraining order. With your safety." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "The police will process tonight as a violation. He'll be arrested, probably within the next few days. But depending on his lawyer and the judge, he might make bail." "Of course he will." She laughed, bitter. "He always does." "Then we plan for that." Dante's tone didn't change. Clinical, strategic, like he was laying out a business proposal instead of her life. How long has this been going on? 2 years, on and off. She stared into the whiskey. Mostly on. And the restraining order? 6 months old. He violated it twice before tonight. Once he just showed up at my old gym. Once he followed me on the subway. Both times I called the cops. Both times they said there wasn't enough evidence to arrest him. Because following someone isn't illegal if you can't prove intent. Dante's jaw tightened. And harassment charges require a pattern. Which I have. But apparently 3 incidents aren't enough of a pattern. She drained the rest of the glass. The system doesn't work unless you're already dead. Then we don't rely on the system. Lena looked at him sharply. What does that mean? It means I have resources the police don't. People who specialize in making problems disappear. He held her gaze steady. Travis Cole is a problem. We can make him disappear. The room went very quiet. You're talking about killing him, Lena said. No. I'm talking about ensuring he never comes near you again. There's a difference. Dante stood, crossing to the window. His reflection overlaid the city lights, making him look like a ghost. I know people who can make his life extremely difficult. Legal trouble, financial trouble, the kind of pressure that makes leaving the state sound like a vacation. He won't be dead, but he'll wish he'd never heard your name. That's still... She stopped. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Why? The word came out louder than she intended. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me. Dante turned from the window. I know enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. He moved back toward the chair, but didn't sit. Lena, I'm not a good man. I don't pretend to be. The work I do, the world I operate in, it's built on violence and leverage, and knowing which threats to make and when. But I have rules, and one of them is that people who can't defend themselves deserve someone who will. I can defend myself. I know you can. You've been doing it for 2 years, but you shouldn't have to. His voice dropped, softer now. Let me help. Not because you're weak. Because you deserve better than spending your life looking over your shoulder. Lena wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him she didn't need his darkness, his resources, his dangerous friends. But the truth was sitting heavy in her chest. She was exhausted. Exhausted from running, exhausted from fear, exhausted from being brave. If you do this, she said slowly, what do you get out of it? Dante's mouth curved, not quite a smile. Peace of mind. That's it? That's it. She didn't believe him, but she also didn't have the energy to fight. Okay, she said. Do what you need to do. He nodded once, then moved toward the door. Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest in the morning. Dante? He paused, hand on the doorframe. Thank you, she said. For tonight, for all of it. Don't thank me yet, he replied. We're just getting started. Then he was gone, and Lena was alone with her thoughts and an empty whiskey glass, and the creeping realization that she'd just handed her life over to a man she barely knew. But for the first time in months, she felt safe enough to sleep. The next morning, she woke to sunlight pouring through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. She found Dante in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, working through something on his laptop while a French press sat steaming beside him. He looked up when she entered, and she realized he'd changed clothes, dark jeans, a plain black t-shirt that showed the lean muscle of his arms. Coffee? He offered. Please. He poured her a cup, black, and slid it across the marble counter. There's milk in the fridge if you need it. This is fine. She took a sip. It was good. Stupidly good. The kind of coffee that probably costs more per pound than her grocery budget. You didn't sleep. I did. A few hours. He closed the laptop. I've been making calls. About Travis? About a lot of things. Travis is part of it. He leaned against the counter, studying her. How much do you know about what I do? Lena wrapped both hands around the mug. You own the restaurant. You have scary friends. You offered to make my ex disappear. She met his eyes. I'm guessing you're not in finance. I'm in several things, some legitimate, some less so. He didn't look away, didn't soften it. I broker deals between people who can't meet in public. I move money that doesn't want to be traced, I own properties all over the city that serve purposes I won't explain to you unless you ask directly. Are you in the mob? No, but I work with people who are, and people who make the mob look civilized. He paused. Does that scare you? It should have. A week ago, hell, 12 hours ago, it would have sent her running, but standing in his kitchen with expensive coffee and morning light, all Lena felt was a strange sort of calm. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe it should. Probably. But you've never lied to me. Travis lied all the time, made everything sound better than it was, safer than it was. You just tell me the truth, and let me decide what to do with it. Dante's expression shifted, something almost like surprise. Most people prefer the lie. I'm not most people. No, he agreed quietly. You're not. They stood there for a moment, the silence settling into something that felt almost comfortable. Then Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. What? Lena asked. Travis made bail 2 hours ago. Her stomach dropped. Already? He had a lawyer waiting, good one too, argued that since you didn't suffer physical harm and there's no prior conviction on record for the restraining order violations, he's not a flight risk. Dante set the phone down with controlled precision. He's out. So it didn't matter. Last night, the police, the footage, none of it mattered. It matters. It's on record now. Every violation builds the case. But you're right that it doesn't keep him away. He looked at her, direct. Which is why I need you to stay here for a few more days, just until we have better security in place. I can't hide forever. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart. He moved around the counter, closer, but not crowding. Travis is angry right now, humiliated. Men like that are most dangerous in the first 72 hours after they've been challenged. Give me 3 days to put measures in place, and then we'll reassess. What kind of measures? The kind that involve Marco in a very clear conversation about consequences. Lena's pulse jumped. You're going to threaten him. I'm going to educate him. Dante's voice was flat. There's a difference. She should have been horrified, should have told him to stop, that this wasn't how civilized people handled things, that escalation only made everything worse. But Travis had put her in the hospital once, had choked her until she saw stars, had told her, smiling, that if she ever left him, he'd kill her and make it look like an accident. Civilization hadn't saved her. The law hadn't saved her. Maybe it was time to try something else. Okay, she said. 3 days. Dante nodded. I'll have some of your things brought over from your apartment. Clothes, toiletries, whatever you need. Make a list. I can get them myself. No, you can't. Not until we know Travis isn't watching your building. He picked up his phone again. Make the list, Lena. Let me handle the rest. It went against every instinct she'd rebuilt over the past 6 months, but she made the list. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Dante left early each morning and returned late, always with updates delivered in the same calm tone. Travis had been to her apartment twice. Marco had intercepted him both times, no violence required, just presence. The restraining order was being reinforced with additional documentation from the restaurant incident. A lawyer, Dante's lawyer apparently, was building a harassment case that might actually stick. Lena spent the days in the penthouse, feeling like a bird in a very expensive cage. She tried to make herself useful, cleaned the already spotless kitchen, organized bookshelves that didn't need organizing, cooked dinner one night using ingredients she found in a refrigerator that was shockingly well stocked for a man who seemed to live on coffee and whiskey. Dante had come home to the smell of garlic and tomatoes and stopped in the doorway like he'd walked into the wrong apartment. You cooked, he'd said. I was bored. And you have a kitchen you never use. She stirred the sauce, not looking at him. I can put it away if you don't want. No, this is... He set down his briefcase. This is good. Thank you. They'd eaten together at the kitchen counter, and it had felt almost normal, like they were friends, like this was a choice instead of a crisis. You're good at this, Dante had said, gesturing to his plate. Cooking. I used to want to be a chef. Before... She'd trailed off. Before Travis. Yeah. She'd pushed pasta around with her fork. I was in culinary school. Made it through a 1.5 years. Then he convinced me I was wasting money, that I'd never be good enough, that I should focus on supporting his career instead. What was his career? Middle management at a tech startup that folded 6 months after I quit school. She'd laughed, sharp. He's working construction now. Or he was, last I heard. Probably got fired for showing up drunk. Do you want to go back? Dante had asked. To school? The question caught her off guard. I don't know. It's been 2 years. I'm probably too far behind. That's not what I asked. She'd met his eyes across the counter. Yes, I want to go back. Then you will. Just like that. Like it was simple. Like wanting something was enough to make it possible. Lena had wanted to believe him. On the fourth day, Dante came home with Marco and a woman Lena had never seen before. She was late 50s, silver hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a tailored pantsuit that screamed competence. She moved through the penthouse like she owned it, assessing exits and sight lines with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Lena Hart, Dante said by way of introduction. This is Catherine Reeves. She runs security for my properties. Catherine extended a hand. Her grip was firm, professional. Ms. Hart, I've reviewed your situation. We have options. They sat in the living room, Lena on the couch, Dante in his usual chair, Marco by the door, and Catherine pacing as she laid out a plan that sounded like something from a spy movie. We've placed surveillance on Travis Cole's current residence, Catherine began. He's living in a rental in Queens, sharing the space with 2 roommates who have their own legal troubles. He's been to your apartment building 6 times in the past 4 days. Twice he attempted entry. Marco deterred him. Deterred, Lena repeated. Explained that continuing would result in broken bones, Marco supplied helpfully. Catherine didn't miss a beat. We've also flagged his vehicle with NYPD. Any traffic violation will result in immediate arrest given the active restraining order. Additionally, we've placed a notice with your building management that he's not to be admitted under any circumstances. That's... Lena struggled for words. Thorough. We're not done. Catherine pulled out a tablet, swiping through what looked like legal documents. Mr. Moretti has secured an attorney who specializes in domestic violence cases. She's prepared to file for an extended restraining order, 5 years instead of 1, and include criminal harassment charges based on the pattern of violations. Will that actually work? With the evidence we have? Yes. Catherine's expression was grim. The restaurant footage alone is damning. Add in the previous violations and witness statements, and we have a strong case. Witness statements from who? Your former neighbors, your coworkers, the staff at the gym where he confronted you. Catherine set down the tablet. People remember, Ms. Hart. They were just waiting for someone to ask the right questions. Lena felt something loosen in her chest. Not hope, exactly, but something close. What do I need to do? She asked. Stay safe. Follow the protocols we're putting in place, and trust that we're handling this. Catherine glanced at Dante. Unless you have questions? Lena had 1,000 questions, but the one that came out was, why are you doing all this? I can't afford any of this. You're not being billed, Catherine said simply. But, Ms. Hart, Catherine's voice softened slightly. I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 12 years. In that time, I've seen him invest resources into projects that made no financial sense. This is one of them. Don't question it. Just accept it. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on paying her own way, maintaining her independence, not becoming a charity case. But she also wanted to survive. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. Catherine nodded and stood. Marco will escort you back to your apartment tomorrow to collect anything else you need. Mr. Moretti has also arranged for a new residence, safer building, better security. You can move in whenever you're ready. Another apartment. Lena looked at Dante. You're just giving me an apartment? Renting, he corrected. In a building I own. You'll pay standard rate when you're back on your feet. Until then, consider it part of your compensation for the trouble my restaurant brought into your life. Your restaurant didn't... Travis found you because you worked there. That makes it my responsibility. His tone left no room for argument. Catherine, Marco, give us a minute. They left without question, and suddenly, Lena was alone with Dante in a room that felt too big and too small at the same time. You're doing it again, she said. Doing what? Making decisions for me, deciding what I need, where I should live, how I should be protected. She stood, restless energy demanding movement. I appreciate everything you've done. I do. But I can't just let you run my life. I'm not trying to run your life. I'm trying to keep you alive by controlling everything around me, by removing the variables I can control so you have space to breathe. He stood too, facing her across the coffee table. You want independence? Fine. Tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. But don't ask me to step back and watch you get hurt because you're too proud to accept help. It's not about pride. Yes, it is. His voice rose slightly, the first crack in his composure she'd seen. You've spent 2 years with a man who took everything from you. Your career, your confidence, your safety. And now someone's offering to give those things back and you're fighting it because you think accepting makes you weak. It doesn't. It makes you smart. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He moved around the table and she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I understand that you're terrified of becoming dependent, that you think needing help means losing yourself. But Lena, his expression shifted, something raw breaking through. Letting someone care about you isn't the same as letting them own you. The words hit her like a punch. Is that what this is? She asked quietly. You care about me? Dante went very still. Yes. Why? Because you're brave. Because you're standing in front of me arguing for your independence instead of thanking me for fixing your problems. Because you cooked dinner in my kitchen, and it was the first time this place felt like a home instead of a hotel. He exhaled slowly. Because I see you, Lena, and I like what I see. Her breath caught. Dante. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm not expecting gratitude or affection or anything else. But I need you to understand that this, he gestured between them, isn't a transaction. It's not a business deal. I'm helping you because I want to, because the thought of something happening to you makes me want to burn the world down. And if that scares you, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologize for it. Lena stared at him, at this man who'd walked into her life with expensive suits and dangerous friends and quiet promises, who'd proven himself over and over without asking for anything in return. It does scare me, she admitted. I know. But not for the reasons you think. She took a breath. I'm scared because I'm starting to trust you. And trust is how I got hurt last time. I'm not Travis. I know that too. She stepped closer, closing the gap between them. But knowing it and believing it are different things. Then take your time. Dante's voice dropped, barely above a whisper. I'm not going anywhere. She wanted to kiss him. The thought came sudden and fierce, surprising her with its intensity. But she didn't. Not yet. Not when everything was still so fragile. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and steady. 3 more days, she said. Then I'll move into the new apartment, start getting my life back. But I need to do it my way. No more decisions without asking me first. Deal. And Dante? Yeah? Thank you. For seeing me, for caring, for all of it. He lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles in a gesture that was somehow more intimate than any kiss. You're welcome. They stood like that for a long moment, hands linked, the city sprawling below them, and Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The new apartment was in Brooklyn, 4th floor of a pre-war building with actual security and a doorman who looked like he could bench press a car. It was bigger than her old place, cleaner, with windows that let in actual sunlight and a kitchen that made her fingers itch to cook. Dante had been true to his word. He'd asked her about everything. The neighborhood, the layout, the lease terms. She'd insisted on paying rent, and he'd agreed to a rate that was suspiciously below market, but not so low that it felt like charity. Marco helped her move in, carrying boxes with the same efficiency he probably used for body disposal. He didn't talk much, but when he left, he'd squeezed her shoulder and said, You need anything, you call. Boss's orders. Is that all this is? She'd asked. Boss's orders? Marco had smiled, rare and genuine. Nah, you're good people. We look after good people. Then he was gone, and Lena was alone in her new apartment with her old life packed into boxes and the future sprawling out uncertain and terrifying and somehow, impossibly, full of potential. She called Dante that night. How's the place? He asked. It's perfect. Too perfect. I keep waiting for the catch. No catch. Dante, Lena. She could hear the smile in his voice. Just enjoy it. You've earned it. I didn't earn anything. You gave it to me. Then consider it a gift. And before you argue, gifts don't come with strings. They just come because someone wanted to give them. She sat down on her new couch, secondhand but sturdy, and stared at the ceiling. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Accept good things. I keep thinking something's going to go wrong, that Travis is going to show up, that you're going to change your mind, that this is all going to fall apart, and I'll be right back where I started. Those are fair fears, Dante said quietly, but they're not inevitable. Travis is being handled. I'm not changing my mind, and you're stronger than you think. How do you know? Because you're still standing. After everything he put you through, you're still here, still fighting, still trying to build a life. That's not weakness, Lena. That's steel. She felt tears prick her eyes. I wish I could see myself the way you see me. You will. Give it time. They talked for another hour. About nothing. About everything. He told her about growing up in a neighborhood not far from where she was now, about learning early that the world didn't owe you safety, you had to take it. She told him about her mother, about the scholarship to culinary school, about the moment she realized Travis wasn't going to change, and she had to leave or die trying. When they finally hung up, Lena felt lighter than she had in months. She unpacked through the night, putting her life into drawers and cabinets, claiming space. By dawn, the apartment looked lived in, like home. She went back to work at Aurelio's a week later. Tony had kept her position open, though she suspected Dante had something to do with that. The other staff welcomed her back with careful kindness. Nobody asked about Travis, but Maria hugged her so hard her ribs creaked. Missed you, babe, Maria said. Place wasn't the same without your depressing energy. My energy's not depressing. You literally look like a sad Jane Austen character most of the time. I don't even know who that is. Exactly my point. But it felt good to be back. Good to fall into the rhythm of service, the controlled chaos of a busy restaurant, the satisfaction of doing something she was actually good at. Dante still came on Thursdays, still ordered the risotto, but now when she brought his food, he smiled at her, and she smiled back, and it felt like they were sharing a secret the rest of the world couldn't see. You look good, he said one night after she'd cleared his plate. I feel good. She surprised herself by meaning it. Different, better. You're healing. Maybe. She glanced around, making sure no one was listening. Catherine called me yesterday, said the extended restraining order was approved. 5 years. I heard. It's good news. And Travis, she lowered her voice. Marco said he's leaving New York. Something about a job in Florida? Dante's expression didn't change. I may have heard something similar. Did you have anything to do with that? I may have made it clear that staying in the city would be unpleasant for him. He sipped his espresso. But the choice was his. Nobody forced him. She should have been bothered by that, by the manipulation, the pressure, the obvious exercise of power, but all she felt was relief. Thank you, she said. You keep thanking me. You keep giving me reasons to. His eyes met hers, dark and intense. Lena, Table 7 needs you, Tony called from across the room. She smiled apologetically. Duty calls. Later, Dante said. Not a question, a promise. Later, she agreed. Later came 2 weeks after that, on a Saturday when the restaurant was closed, and Lena had nothing to do but exist in her apartment and think too much. She called Dante at 7. Are you busy? She asked. Never too busy for you. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She paused. Do you want to come over? I'm making dinner. Silence. Then, you're inviting me to dinner. Yes. Is that weird? It feels weird. It's not weird. She could hear movement on his end, keys jangling. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He showed up in 19, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. You didn't have to bring anything, she said, letting him in. My grandmother would rise from the dead and murder me if I showed up empty-handed. He handed her the bottle. What are we having? Pasta. Nothing fancy. She felt suddenly self-conscious. I know you eat at good restaurants all the time. Lena. He caught her hand. I'd eat burnt toast if you made it. Stop worrying. They cooked together, falling into an easy rhythm that surprised them both. Dante chopped vegetables with the precision of someone who'd learned by necessity, while Lena handled the sauce, adjusting heat and seasoning by instinct. "You really are good at this," he observed, watching her work. "It's one of the few things I never doubted about myself. Even when Travis was—" She didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. "You should go back to school," Dante said. "Finish what you started. I've thought about it, but it's expensive, and I'd have to cut my hours, and I'll cover it." She spun to face him. "No. Lena, no. I can't let you pay for culinary school. That's too much. That's—" She struggled for words. "That crosses a line." "What line? The one between helping and, I don't know, ownership." Dante set down his knife, wiping his hands on a towel. "Listen to me very carefully. I'm not trying to own you. I'm not trying to control you. I'm offering to invest in something you're passionate about because I believe you'll be brilliant at it. That's all. But I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to." He moved closer. "Lena, I have more money than I know what to do with. Most of it comes from things I'm not proud of. But this, helping you become who you're meant to be, this would actually mean something. Let me do this, please." She wanted to say no, wanted to maintain her boundaries, her independence, her pride. But she also wanted to cook, wanted to learn, wanted to stop letting Travis's ghost dictate what she could dream. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "it's a loan. I pay you back when I can. If that's what you need it to be. And I pick the school. I decide the schedule, no interference." "Agreed." She studied his face, looking for the catch, the hidden angle, the moment where this would turn into something ugly. All she saw was sincerity. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. Yes." Dante's smile was bright enough to light the room. They ate dinner on her couch because her apartment didn't have a proper dining table, and talked until midnight about everything and nothing. He told her about his first restaurant job, washing dishes at 15 to help his mother make rent. She told him about the first dish she'd ever cooked that made her mother cry. A simple risotto, actually, which made him laugh. "That's why you noticed me ordering it," she realized. "Partly, but also because it's good risotto. Tony's cook is excellent." "He is, but yours would be better." The compliment settled warm in her chest. When he finally left, he paused in the doorway. "This was good. We should do it again." "Like a date?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Dante's expression turned serious. "Is that what you want? Because if it is, I need you to be sure. I'm not Travis. I won't hurt you. But I'm also not going to pretend I don't want more than friendship." Her heart hammered. "I don't know if I'm ready for more." "Then we'll take it slow. No pressure. No expectations. Just time. Together. Seeing where it goes. And if I decide I can't do this, if it's too much, then we stay friends, and I still help with school, and nothing changes except the possibility of something romantic." He brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture achingly gentle. "You're in control here, Lena. Always." She believed him. "Okay," she said. "Slow. We can do slow." He kissed her forehead, soft and brief. "Good night, Lena." "Good night, Dante." She closed the door and leaned against it, smiling like an idiot, feeling like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Slow turned out to be harder than either of them expected. Not because Dante pushed. He didn't. He was maddeningly patient, showing up for dinner once a week, texting her articles about restaurants he thought she'd find interesting, calling just to hear about her day. He never asked for more than she offered, never made her feel like his help came with invisible strings. But that patience made her want him more. Lena enrolled in culinary school in September, evening classes at the Institute of Culinary Education in Lower Manhattan. The first day back felt like stepping into a version of herself she'd forgotten existed. She was older than most of her classmates, quieter, carrying weight they couldn't see. But when she picked up a knife, when she felt the heat rolling off a stovetop, everything else fell away. She was good at this. She'd always been good at this. "How was it?" Dante asked when he picked her up after class. He'd started doing that, appearing at the end of her evening sessions like it was the most natural thing in the world, driving her home through the city streets while she talked about techniques and flavor profiles and the tyrannical French chef who taught her knife skills class. Exhausting, Amazing. Terrifying. She kicked off her shoes in his passenger seat, not caring any more about treating his expensive car like a museum. I forgot how much I missed it. You're smiling. Am I? She caught her reflection in the side mirror. She was. Guess I am. It's good on you. She looked at him then, really looked. He'd loosened his tie, rolled his sleeves up. There was tiredness around his eyes that spoke of long days doing things she still didn't fully understand, but he'd shown up anyway. For her. Thank you, she said quietly, for making this possible. You're the one doing the work. But you gave me the chance. She reached across the console, found his hand. That matters. His fingers threaded through hers, and they drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence. The relationship, if that's what it was, developed in increments. A kiss goodnight that lingered too long. His hand on the small of her back as they walked through crowded streets. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, like she was something precious. He couldn't quite believe he got to keep. She was falling for him. The realization hit her one night in October, watching him attempt to make risotto in her kitchen while she coached him through it. More stock, she instructed, and keep stirring. It's not going to stir itself. This is why I pay people to cook for me, he muttered, but there was no real complaint in it. You're doing fine. Just don't stop moving. He shot her a look over his shoulder. Is this how you torture all your students? Only the ones who think they can boss their way through a recipe. She moved behind him, placing her hands over his on the wooden spoon. Feel that? The resistance? That's the starch releasing. You have to coax it out, not force it. Coax it, he repeated, and his voice had dropped lower. Yeah. She was suddenly very aware of how close they were standing, of the heat of his body against hers, of the fact that if she turned her head even slightly, her mouth would be inches from his neck. Dante went still. Lena. Yeah? If you don't step back right now, I'm going to burn this risotto. Maybe I don't care about the risotto. He turned in her arms, and the spoon clattered to the counter. His hands came up to frame her face, and for a moment they just stood there, breathing the same air. Tell me to stop, he said. I don't want you to stop. He kissed her then, deep and hungry, and nothing like the careful brushes of lips they'd shared before. This was want, raw and undeniable. She kissed him back with everything she had, pouring months of careful restraint into the press of her mouth against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the risotto was definitely burning. Dante reached behind him and turned off the stove without looking. Forget dinner. Terrible waste of good arborio rice, she managed. I'll buy you 10 pounds of arborio rice. I'll buy you a whole goddamn rice field. He kissed her again, softer this time. Stay with me tonight. Not at your place. Mine. She should have hesitated, should have asked for more time, more certainty, more proof that this wouldn't end the way everything else had. But she'd been careful for so long, and Dante had proven himself in 1,000 small ways. He'd never lied to her, never tried to make her smaller, never treated her trust like something he was owed. Okay, she whispered. Take me home. They barely made it through his front door before his mouth was on hers again, desperate and demanding. Lena let herself get lost in it, in him, in the feeling of being wanted without fear threaded through it. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. You're sure? I'm sure. Because we can stop any time. You say the word, and She kissed him to shut him up, and he got the message. What followed was nothing like what she'd had with Travis. There was no performance, no pressure to be something she wasn't. Just two people learning each other in the dark, stumbling and laughing and finding their rhythm. Afterward, lying tangled in his sheets with the city lights spilling through the windows, Lena felt something unlock in her chest. You okay? Dante asked, tracing patterns on her shoulder. Better than okay. She turned to face him. I'm happy. Is that allowed? It's mandatory. He kissed her forehead. You deserve to be happy. So do you. Then I guess we're doing all right. She fell asleep in his arms, and for the first time in years, she didn't dream about running. The next 2 months passed in a blur of classes and shifts at Aurelio's and nights spent at Dante's place. They fell into a rhythm that felt almost domestic. She'd cook, he'd clean up. He'd tell her about his day in vague terms that didn't include the illegal parts, and she'd tell him about the disaster pastry she'd attempted in class. Tony noticed the change in her. "You're different," he said one night, catching her humming while she set tables. "Different how?" "Lighter. Less like you're waiting for the sky to fall." He adjusted his glasses. "It's the boss, isn't it?" Lena's cheeks heated. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Right. And I don't notice him watching you like you're the only person in the room." Tony smiled. "It's good, kid. You deserve good." Everyone keeps saying that because it's true. But good didn't mean easy. There were still nights when Lena woke up gasping from dreams where Travis found her. Still moments when a raised voice in the restaurant made her flinch. Still days when the weight of what she'd survived felt too heavy to carry. Dante never tried to fix it. He just held her through the bad nights, reminded her to breathe during the panic attacks, and gave her space when she needed to fall apart. "I'm broken," she told him one night after a particularly brutal nightmare had left her shaking. "No, you're not." "I am. I can't even sleep without—" "You're healing," he interrupted. "That's not the same as broken. It's just in progress." "How are you so patient with this? With me?" He pulled her closer. "Because you're worth it. And because I know what it's like to carry shit that doesn't go away just because you want it to." She'd never asked about his past, about what had turned him into the kind of man who brokered deals with criminals and kept people like Marco on payroll. But she heard it sometimes in the careful way he talked about his childhood, in the scars he pretended didn't exist. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. "Long story, most of it ugly. I've got time." He was quiet for a long moment, then, "My father worked for people who didn't believe in second chances. When I was 12, he made a mistake. Skimmed money he shouldn't have touched. They killed him for it. Made my mother and me watch." Lena's breath caught. "Dante, I learned early that the world doesn't care about fair. It cares about power. Who has it, who wants it, and what you're willing to do to keep it." His voice was flat, reciting facts. "So I got powerful. Made sure nobody could ever do to me what they did to him." "Is that why you help people? To balance the scales?" "Maybe. Or maybe I just got tired of watching people get crushed by things they can't control." He turned to look at her. "Either way, you're not a project to me, Lena. You're not some redemption arc. You're just you. And I want you. All of you. The nightmares and the strength and everything in between." She kissed him then, tasting salt she didn't know was from her tears or his. "I love you," she said. The words surprised her, but once they were out, she knew they were true. Dante went very still. "Say that again." "I love you. I know it's fast and probably stupid, and—" "It's not stupid." He cupped her face in both hands. "I love you too. Have for months. Just didn't know if you were ready to hear it." "I'm ready." They made love again, slower this time, and Lena felt like she was finally allowing herself to believe this was real. She should have known better. The first sign of trouble came in early November. Lena was closing at Aurelio's, counting tips in the back office with Maria, when Tony came in looking grim. "Lena, someone's asking for you out front." Her stomach dropped. "Who?" Didn't give a name, but he's not taking no for an answer. She exchanged a look with Maria, whose eyes had gone wide. "Call Dante." "Already did," Tony said. "He's on his way, but this guy says he'll wait." Lena forced herself to breathe. Travis was in Florida. Catherine had confirmed it just last week. This wasn't him, but that didn't mean it wasn't dangerous. She walked to the front of the restaurant, Maria trailing behind her like a very vocal bodyguard. The dining room was empty except for a man sitting at table 12. Not Travis. This man was older, maybe mid-50s, with iron gray hair and a suit that made Dante's look cheap. He stood when he saw her, and his smile was all teeth. "Lena Hart. Finally." His accent was faint but unmistakable. Eastern European, she thought. "I've been wanting to meet you." "I don't know you." "No. But I know you, or rather, I know Dante Moretti. And by extension, I know you're very important to him." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." "I'm good standing." "Suit yourself." He remained standing too. "My name is Victor Sokolov. I have business with Mr. Moretti. Unfortunately, he's been uncooperative, so I thought perhaps a more personal approach might encourage cooperation." The bottom dropped out of Lena's world. You're threatening me. I'm explaining the situation. Victor's smile didn't waver. Dante has something I need. A list of names, clients who've used his services to move certain assets. He's refused to provide it, multiple times. That's between you and him. Normally, yes, but he's made you my business by caring about you. Victor tilted his head. It's a weakness. Attachment always is. Get out of this restaurant. Tony's voice came from behind the bar, and Lena saw he was holding something behind his back, probably the bat he kept for exactly these situations. Victor ignored him. Tell Dante he has 48 hours to deliver the list. If he doesn't, you and I will have another conversation, one that won't be nearly as pleasant. And if I tell you to go to hell, then people you care about start getting hurt. Your mother, for instance, Susan Hart, living in that charming little house in New Jersey, or maybe Maria here. He glanced at Lena's coworker, who had gone pale. Such a vibrant girl. Would be a shame if something happened to her. Lena's hands curled into fists. You son of a... The front door slammed open. Dante walked in with Marco half a step behind him, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victor, Dante's voice was ice. You have 10 seconds to explain why you're in my restaurant threatening my people. Your people? Victor laughed. Since when do you claim ownership of waitresses? Marco moved, but Dante held up a hand. Answer the question. I'm delivering a message, one I assume Ms. Hart will relay to you, since you clearly value her input. Victor straightened his cuffs. 48 hours, Dante. The list, or she pays the price. You touch her, you die, Dante said flatly. Not eventually, not as a consequence. You die screaming, and I make sure everyone you've ever worked with knows you went out begging. Big threats from a man who can't protect everyone all the time. Victor's gaze slid back to Lena. She has to sleep eventually, has to leave the house, has to exist in the world where my people can reach her. Try it, Dante invited. Please, give me a reason. For the first time, Victor's confidence wavered. Whatever he saw in Dante's face made him take a step back. 48 hours, he repeated, then walked out without another word. The moment the door closed, Dante was on his phone. Catherine, we have a situation. Victor Sokolov just threatened Lena at Aurelio's. I need full security protocols active in the next hour. Yes, everyone she knows. I don't care what it costs. He hung up and turned to Lena, and the fury in his eyes was terrifying. Are you hurt? He asked. No, just scared. Good. Use that. Fear keeps you sharp. He looked at Tony. Close early tonight. Send everyone home. I'm putting security on this building until further notice. Dante, you can't just... I own the building. I can do whatever I want. He looked at Marco. Get her to the car. I'll be right behind you. I'm not leaving you, Lena protested. You're not. I'm coming with you. But I need 1 minute to make sure everyone here is protected. His expression softened slightly. Please, Lena, let Marco take you to the car. I'll be right there. She wanted to argue. Wanted to demand answers about who Victor was and what list he was talking about, and why her life had suddenly become a bargaining chip in someone else's war. But the look on Dante's face stopped her. She nodded and let Marco guide her outside. The drive to Dante's penthouse was silent. Lena sat in the back of the SUV. When had it become an SUV instead of Dante's usual car? With Marco in the passenger seat and another man she didn't recognize driving. Dante sat beside her, hand wrapped around hers, staring out the window with an expression that could cut glass. Who is he? She finally asked. Victor. A competitor. Someone who wants access to my client list so he can either steal them or leverage them for his own business. And you won't give it to him because my clients pay for discretion. The moment I hand over their information, I'm useless and dead. He turned to face her. I should have seen this coming. Should have known he'd go after you. How could you have known? Because it's what I would do. The admission was bitter. Find the weakness, apply pressure, force cooperation. So what do we do? We end this. Tonight. He pulled out his phone again, typing something she couldn't see. Victor made a mistake coming to you directly. He showed his hand. Now I know exactly how desperate he is. Dante, if you're thinking about doing something, I'm thinking about keeping you alive. Everything else is secondary. They pulled into the underground parking garage of his building, and suddenly there were more people. Men in dark clothing, speaking into earpieces, forming a perimeter around the elevator. Catherine appeared from somewhere, her face set in grim lines. "We have surveillance on Sokolov's known locations," she reported, falling into step beside Dante as they moved toward the elevator. "He's got 5 properties in the city, crew of about 15, mostly low-level muscle. But he's connected to the Volkov syndicate out of Brighton Beach." "I know." Dante stabbed the elevator button. "Which means this isn't just about the list, it's about territory." "What's the play?" "We give him what he wants." Lena's head snapped toward him. "You're going to give him the list?" "I'm going to give him a list." Dante's smile was sharp. "Question is whether he's smart enough to check it before acting on it." Catherine's expression matched his. "A trap. More like misdirection. Victor wants names. I'll give him names. Of people who've been dead for years, who've already been burned by their own organizations, who'll lead him straight into a federal investigation if he's stupid enough to follow up." "And when he realizes you played him?" Lena asked. "He'll be too busy dealing with the consequences to come after you." Dante looked at her, and for the first time since the restaurant, his expression cracked. "I'm sorry. I never wanted you involved in this part of my life." "I'm already involved. Victor made sure of that. Then I'll uninvolve you, whatever it takes." The elevator doors opened and they stepped into organized chaos. Dante's penthouse had been transformed into something that looked like a military command center. Laptops on every surface, people talking in low, urgent tones, maps of the city marked with locations Lena didn't recognize. "Jesus," she breathed. "Catherine doesn't mess around," Dante said. "Make yourself comfortable. This is going to take a while." But Lena couldn't sit still. She watched Dante work, watched him transform from the man who'd taught himself to make risotto into someone cold and calculating, issuing orders with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. This was the part of him she'd never fully seen. The dangerous part. The part that made men like Victor nervous. And she realized, watching him, that she wasn't scared of this Dante. She was scared for him. "What happens if this doesn't work?" she asked Catherine quietly, while Dante was on yet another phone call. "It'll work. Dante doesn't make plans that fail." Catherine glanced at her. "You need to trust him." "I do trust him. That's not the problem." "Then what is?" "I'm the problem." Lena wrapped her arms around herself. "Victor came after me because Dante cares about me, which means everyone he cares about is a target. His mother, does he even have family left?" "No. You're it." Catherine's voice was gentle. "And before you start thinking about leaving to protect him, know that it won't work. He'll just follow you, and then you'll both be vulnerable. So what do I do? You stay. You let him protect you, and you remember that he's choosing this. You didn't ask for it. You didn't manipulate him into caring. He just does." The word settled something in Lena's chest, but the fear didn't leave. At 2 in the morning, Dante finally came to find her. She'd fallen asleep on his couch, curled up like a cat, and he crouched beside her with exhaustion written across his face. "Hey," he said softly. "Come to bed." "Is it done?" "The first part. Victor will have his list by morning. After that," he helped her to her feet. "After that, we wait and see if he's as smart as he thinks he is." They went to his bedroom, and Lena changed into one of his shirts while he stripped down to boxer briefs. When they lay down, she curled into his side, listening to his heartbeat. "I'm sorry," he said into the darkness. "For what?" "For bringing this into your life. You were healing, moving forward, and now I'm exactly where I want to be." She tilted her head to look at him. "I'm scared. I won't lie about that. But I'm not leaving you. Not because of Victor, not because of the danger. You don't get to make that choice for me." "Lena, I mean it. We're in this together. Whatever happens." He pulled her closer, and she felt the tension drain from his body. "Together," he repeated. "Yeah, okay." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other. While in the next room, Catherine and her team monitored a situation that could explode into violence at any moment. 24 hours later, Victor took the bait. Lena was at the Institute, in the middle of a demonstration on sauce reduction, when her phone buzzed. A text from Dante. "Stay in the building. Security is outside. Don't leave until I come get you." Her hand stilled on her notebook. Around her, classmates continued taking notes while the chef explained the Maillard reaction, but Lena couldn't focus. She texted back, "What happened?" The response came immediately. Victor moved on the list, contacted 3 of the names. All of them are federal informants. He's about to have a very bad day. Is it over? Not yet. But soon. I'll explain when I see you. Stay put. She tried to pay attention to the rest of class, but her mind was elsewhere. When the session finally ended, she packed up quickly and headed for the exit. True to his word, Marco was waiting outside with the SUV. "Boss wants you at the safe house," he said, opening the door. "What safe house?" "The one he bought last month, just in case." Marco's expression was grim. Victor figured out the names were fake faster than we hoped. He's pissed, and when people like him get pissed, they get stupid. Stupid how? Stupid enough to try something desperate. They drove to a building in Chelsea, nondescript and forgettable, and Marco led her up to a 3rd-floor apartment that was fully furnished, but clearly unlived in. Dante was already there, along with Catherine and 3 men Lena didn't recognize. "What's going on?" she demanded. Dante looked up from the laptop he'd been studying. "Victor knows I played him. He's threatened retaliation. We're moving you here until we neutralize the threat." "Neutralize how?" "However necessary." His voice was flat. "He crossed a line, Lena. He came after you. He threatened your mother, your friends. That's not something I can let stand." "So you're going to kill him?" The room went quiet. "If that's what it takes," Dante said. "Yes." Lena's stomach churned. She'd known this moment would come eventually, had known that Dante's world operated by different rules, that violence was currency and mercy was weakness. But knowing it and seeing it were different things. "Is there another way?" she asked. "Not one that keeps you safe." "Dante." "No." He stood, closing the distance between them. "I know what you're going to say. That this makes me like them. That killing him solves nothing. But you're wrong. Killing him solves the immediate problem of you being targeted. And right now, that's all I care about." "What about the law? Can't we—" "The law doesn't move fast enough. Victor has lawyers, connections, money. By the time the system gets around to prosecuting him, you could be dead." He gripped her shoulders. "I won't take that risk. I can't." She saw the truth in his eyes. He'd already made the decision. This wasn't a debate. It was a notification. "When?" she asked quietly. "Tonight. Victor's holed up in a warehouse in Red Hook. We have the location. Catherine's team is ready. And you're going with them." "Yes." "What if something happens to you?" "It won't. You can't promise that." "Then I'll do my best to come back." He cupped her face. "But I need you to stay here. Safe. With Marco. Can you do that for me?" Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to insist on coming with him, on being part of this instead of sitting on the sidelines waiting. But she also knew she'd be a liability, a distraction, someone he'd have to protect instead of someone who could help. "Okay," she whispered. "But you come back to me. Promise me." "I promise." He kissed her then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. Then he was gone, and Lena was left with Marco and the excruciating wait. The waiting was worse than anything Travis had ever put her through. At least with Travis, the violence had been immediate. A fist, a shove, words that cut like razors. You knew when it was coming, could brace for impact, could count the seconds until it was over. This was different. This was sitting in a sterile apartment with Marco standing guard by the door, checking his phone every 30 seconds, while the man she loved walked into a warehouse full of people who wanted him dead. Lena paced, sat, paced again, made coffee she didn't drink, stared at her own phone like she could will it to ring. "He's done this before," Marco said after her 10th lap around the living room. "Boss knows what he's doing." "That doesn't make it better." "No, but it's true." Marco's scarred face was unreadable. "Dante survived worse than Viktor Sokolov. He'll survive this too." "You can't know that." "I can. Been working for him 8 years, seen him walk into situations that should have killed him. He always walks back out." Marco's expression softened slightly. "He's got something to come back for now. That makes him more careful, not less." Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love was armor instead of vulnerability. but she'd seen the look in Dante's eyes before he left. He'd meant what he said about protecting her at any cost, which meant if it came down to a choice between his safety and hers, she knew exactly what he'd choose. Her phone buzzed at 11:30. Not Dante. Catherine. Situation developing. Stay where you are. Marco has orders. Lena's hand shook as she typed back. Is he okay? No response. Marco. She turned to find him already on his own phone, his expression dark. What's happening? He held up a finger, listening to whoever was on the other end. Understood. No, she's here. Safe. Yeah, I'll tell her. He hung up. Tell me what? Lena demanded. There was a complication. Victor wasn't at the warehouse. It was a setup. The floor tilted. What kind of setup? The kind where he knew we were coming and left a surprise instead. Marco's jaw tightened. Explosive. Small one, but enough to slow them down. Catherine's team is fine. Minor injuries, nothing serious. But Victor used the distraction to move. Move where? That's what they're trying to figure out. He checked his phone again. Boss wants you to stay put. He's handling it. He's hurt, isn't he? She could read it in Marco's face, in the way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. Tell me the truth. Shrapnel caught his shoulder. Catherine says it's not bad, but he needs stitches. He refused to go to a hospital, so they're patching him up on site. Marco finally looked at her directly. He's okay, Lena. Pissed off, but okay. She sank onto the couch, relief and rage warring in her chest. This is my fault. No, it's not. Victor came after him because of me. If you'd never what? Existed? Caught the boss's attention? Marco crossed the room, sat down beside her. Listen, Dante's been in this life since before you were born. He's made enemies, crossed lines, done things that would make your hair turn white. Victor's not after him because of you. You're just the excuse Victor's using. But no buts. You didn't pull a trigger. You didn't threaten anyone. You just had the bad luck of falling in love with someone who operates in a world where people use leverage however they can find it. He leaned back. But here's the thing. Dante chose you anyway, knowing the risk, knowing it would make him vulnerable. That's on him, not you. Lena wiped at her eyes angrily. I hate this. I hate feeling helpless. Welcome to the club. That's what it's like loving someone who runs toward danger instead of away from it. Marco almost smiled. Gets easier. Not better, but easier. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Dante. I'm fine. Don't believe whatever Marco told you about me being hurt. Okay, I'm a little hurt, but it's nothing. Stay where you are. This ends tonight. She called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. You shouldn't be calling, he said, but there was warmth under the irritation. You should be resting. You got blown up. Barely, more like singed. Catherine's being dramatic. Let me talk to Catherine. Lena heard rustling, then Catherine's dry voice came on the line. He took shrapnel to the shoulder and has second-degree burns on his left hand. He's also being an idiot about medical treatment. I can hear you, Dante said in the background. You're supposed to hear me. Maybe you'll listen to Lena since you won't listen to me. Catherine's tone shifted. He'll be fine, Ms. Hart. Stubborn, but fine. Can I talk to him again? More rustling. Then Dante. I told you I'm fine. And I'm choosing not to believe you. Lena's voice cracked. Come back, please. We can figure out Victor another way. There is no other way. Not anymore. His voice dropped lower, like he was moving away from the others. He tried to kill my people tonight, Lena. Tried to kill me. I can't let that stand. You understand that, right? I understand you're going to get yourself killed trying to prove a point. It's not about proving anything. It's about making sure he can't hurt you. Can't hurt anyone I care about ever again. She heard him exhale slowly. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She wanted to scream, wanted to demand he come back to the safe house, that they disappear somewhere Victor would never find them, that he choose her over revenge. But she also understood what Marco had been trying to tell her. This was who Dante was, a man who protected what was his with everything he had. Walking away from Victor now would mean living in fear forever. And Dante didn't do fear. He did action. I trust you, she said quietly, but I also need you to come back to me, in one piece, not as a hero, just you. I promise. The words were soft. This'll be over soon, and then we can go back to arguing about whether risotto needs wine or not. It absolutely needs wine. See? We'll be fine. She could hear the smile in his voice. I love you. I love you too. So much it scares me. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He paused. I have to go. Marco will keep you safe until I get there. Dante. But he'd already hung up. Lena stared at her phone, at the black screen that reflected her own frightened face, and made a decision. Marco, she said, I need you to take me to wherever Dante is. Not happening. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you I'm going. She stood. You can come with me, or you can try to stop me, but I'm leaving this apartment either way. Marco studied her for a long moment. Boss will have my head. Then it'll match the rest of you. Despite everything, he laughed. You got some steel in you after all. He stood, checking the weapon holstered under his jacket. Okay, but you stay in the car. You don't get out unless I say. And if shit goes sideways, you do exactly what I tell you. Deal? Deal. They took a different route than she expected, winding through streets that got progressively darker and more industrial. Brooklyn, she realized? The warehouses near the water where the city's pulse grew faint and dangerous. Where are we going? She asked. Boss tracked Victor to a shipping facility in Sunset Park. Catherine's team set up a perimeter. They're waiting for the right moment to move in. Marco's hands were steady on the wheel. This is bad strategy, by the way. You being here makes you a target. I'm already a target. At least this way I know what's happening. They pulled up to a building 3 blocks from what Marco said was the facility. He parked in the shadows between 2 streetlights, killed the engine, and turned to face her. You stay here. Doors locked. Windows up. Someone comes near this car who isn't me. You hit the horn, and you don't stop hitting it until I come back. What if you don't come back? Then you drive. Keys are in the ignition. You go straight to the 78th precinct, and you ask for Detective Morrison. Catherine set it up. He's expecting a possible contact. Marco's expression was serious. You don't go home. You don't go to Dante's place. You go to Morrison, and you let him handle protective custody. The reality of what they were about to do hit her all at once. This is insane. Yeah, but it's also necessary. He pulled out his phone, typed something. I'm telling boss you're here. He's going to be pissed, but better he knows than finds out the hard way. Lena watched him go, disappearing into the darkness between buildings like a ghost. The street was empty, just the distant hum of traffic and the occasional siren. She locked the doors, checked all the windows, tried not to imagine everything that could go wrong. Her phone lit up. Dante, what the hell are you doing here? She typed back. Couldn't stay away, sorry. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, stay in the car. I mean it, Lena. Do not get out. I won't. Just finish this and come back. The dots appeared one more time, then stopped. No response. Lena stared at the warehouse district, at the shadowy buildings that could hide anything, and prayed to a deity she didn't believe in that everyone she loved would walk back out. The explosion came 20 minutes later. Not as big as the first one, according to Marco's terse explanation later, but enough to light up the sky orange and send a concussive wave rolling across the waterfront. Lena screamed, hands flying to her mouth, watching smoke pour from a building 2 blocks north. Her phone was already in her hand, dialing Dante. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. No. Movement caught her eye. People running. Toward the smoke, not away. She recognized Catherine's silver hair, saw Marco's distinctive build. But no Dante. Her hand moved to the door handle. Stay in the car, he'd said. Do not get out. But what if he was hurt? What if he needed help? What if... The passenger door yanked open and someone lunged inside. Lena screamed, scrambling backward, but a hand clamped over her mouth and she smelled cologne that made her stomach turn. Quiet, Viktor Sokolov said pleasantly, pressing something cold against her ribs. Or I put a bullet in your spine and you spend the rest of your very short life paralyzed. Terror turned her blood to ice. She nodded once and he removed his hand. Good girl. Now you're going to drive exactly where I tell you to. And if you try anything heroic, I start shooting. He smiled. I might start with you. I might start with that crowd of people running around like ants. Depends on my mood. Dante will kill you, Lena managed. Dante will try. But first he has to find you, and by the time he does, we'll have had a nice long conversation about the real list, the one with actual names on it. Victor pressed the gun harder against her ribs. Drive. She didn't have a choice. Her hands shook as she started the engine, pulled into the empty street. Victor directed her south, away from the facility, deeper into the industrial wasteland. You made a mistake, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Coming after me. I made a calculated risk. There's a difference. Victor glanced at his phone. Your boyfriend is currently occupied with the fire I set as a distraction. By the time he realizes you're gone, we'll be long gone. Where are you taking me? Somewhere we can talk without interruption. He gestured with the gun. Left here, then straight for 3 blocks. Lena drove, her mind racing. Marco had said to hit the horn if someone approached the car, but Victor was already inside. The horn would do nothing but alert people that something was wrong, and Victor would shoot her for it. She had to think, had to find an opening. The list doesn't exist, she tried. Not the way you think. Dante doesn't keep records like that. It's all in his head. That's what he wants everyone to believe. But men like Dante always have insurance, documents, files, leverage. He's just been smart about hiding it. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and swore. They found the car, faster than I expected. You're going to need to drive a little faster. If I speed, we'll get pulled over. Then don't get pulled over. Turn right, now. She jerked the wheel, tires squealing. Behind them, she caught a glimpse of headlights. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. They're following us, she said. I can see that. Keep driving. Her phone, sitting in the cup holder, lit up. Dante's name flashing. Victor grabbed it, threw it out the window. No more distractions. The headlights were getting closer. Lena could make out the lead vehicle now, the same SUV Marco had been driving, which meant they'd figured out she was gone, figured out Victor had her, which meant Dante knew. This isn't going to work, Lena said, her voice steadier than she felt. You can't outrun them, and you can't kill all of them. There are too many. I only need to kill one. You. Victor's smile was cold. The moment your boyfriend gets too close, I put a bullet in your head. And then where's his leverage? Where's his reason to keep me alive? You'll still be dead. Dante doesn't do halfway. Maybe. But so will you. And I'm betting he loves you more than he loves revenge. Victor gestured sharply. Left, into that alley. It was a dead end. Lena saw that the moment she turned in. Brick walls on 3 sides, dumpsters forming a maze, nowhere to go. She stopped the car. Out, Victor ordered. Hands where I can see them. She complied, legs shaking, trying to map escape routes that didn't exist. The alley was narrow, dark. The SUV's headlights swung around the corner, flooding the space with harsh white light. Victor pulled her in front of him, gun pressed to her temple. That's far enough. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. Catherine stepped out first, hands raised, no weapon visible. Marco flanked her, his face carved from stone. And then Dante emerged from the passenger side of the lead SUV. He looked like he'd walked through hell. Blood soaked his shoulder, burns visible on his left hand, soot streaking his face. But his eyes were clear and cold and locked on Victor with the kind of fury that could level cities. Let her go, Dante said. His voice was quiet, conversational, absolutely terrifying. I don't think so, not until you give me what I want. I'll give you a quick death. That's more than you deserve. Big talk from a man whose girlfriend is one trigger pull from dead. Victor's grip tightened on Lena, and she felt the gun barrel dig into her skin. The list, Dante. Real names, or I paint this alley with her brain. Lena watched Dante calculate, saw him measuring distances, angles, possibilities, saw the moment he realized there was no clean play here, no scenario where everyone walked away. Okay, Dante said. Okay, the list is in my office, safe in the floor. Combination is 18427. Catherine knows where. Nice try. Catherine goes nowhere. Victor's laugh was sharp. You go. You have 1 hour to get it and come back. And if you're not back, or if you bring anyone else, she dies. That's not going to work for me. It's not a negotiation. You're right, it's not. Dante took a step forward. Here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to lower that gun. You're going to step away from Lena, and you're going to get on your knees with your hands behind your head. Or what? Or I let Marco put a bullet in your spine. Not your head. Your spine. And then we see how long it takes you to bleed out while I ask you questions about everyone you've ever worked with. Dante's expression didn't change. I'm not offering you a deal, Victor. I'm telling you how this ends. The only choice you have is whether you die fast or slow. Victor's hand trembled slightly. You're bluffing. Am I? Dante tilted his head. Marco, you have the shot? Yeah. Marco's voice came from somewhere to the left, and Lena realized with cold certainty that he'd moved while they were talking, found an angle. Say the word. You'll hit her, Victor said, but there was doubt in his voice now. Marco doesn't miss, and he's got orders to take the shot if I give the signal. Dante took another step closer. So, here we are. You can let her go and maybe I let you walk out of this city alive. Or you can keep that gun to her head and die in the next 5 seconds. Your call. The moment stretched. Lena could feel Victor's pulse through his grip on her arm, rabbit fast and panicked. Could smell his fear mixing with cologne. She made her own calculation and drove her elbow back into his ribs as hard as she could. Victor's grip loosened, the gun swung away from her head, and Lena threw herself forward, hitting the pavement hard, rolling. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, not from Victor's gun, from Marco's. Victor went down screaming, clutching his leg, the gun skittering across asphalt, and then Dante was there, kicking the weapon away, dropping to his knees beside Lena. Are you hurt? His hands moved over her, checking for wounds, blood, breaks. Lena, talk to me. Are you hurt? I'm okay. Her voice came out shaky. I'm okay. You're the one bleeding. That's old blood, doesn't count. He pulled her up, crushing her against his chest despite the injuries he was pretending didn't hurt. What the hell were you thinking coming here? I was thinking I couldn't sit in that apartment one more second not knowing if you were alive or dead. So you drove into an active situation and got yourself kidnapped. It wasn't my best plan. Despite everything, the blood, the pain, the chaos, he laughed. No, it really wasn't. Behind them, Catherine was zip-tying Victor's wrists while he cursed in what sounded like 3 different languages. Marco had already called for cleanup, his phone pressed to his ear while he kept his weapon trained on Victor's head. What happens to him now? Lena asked. That depends on how cooperative he is. Dante helped her to her feet, keeping one arm around her waist. If he's smart, he gives up everyone in his organization, names, locations, bank accounts. In exchange, maybe he gets to live out his life in a federal prison instead of disappearing into the river. And if he's not smart, then the river it is. Dante's voice was matter-of-fact. I don't have patience for people who threaten you. She should have been horrified, should have protested, insisted on mercy, argued for due process, but all she felt was exhausted relief. Can we go home now? She asked. Yeah, we can go home. He pressed a kiss to her temple. But first you're getting checked out by a medic. You hit that pavement hard. So did you, repeatedly, from what I can see, which is why we're both getting checked out. He guided her toward the SUV, Catherine already moving to take point. And then we're going home. And then you're never leaving my sight again. That seems excessive. I just watched a man hold a gun to your head. I'm allowed to be excessive. He stopped, turning to face her fully. I thought I lost you. When Marco said you were in the car and then the car was gone, his voice cracked, and Lena saw past the control, past the dangerous composure, to the raw terror underneath. I'm here, she said, framing his face with her hands. I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, tasting like smoke and blood and survival. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. I love you, he said, so goddamn much. I love you too, even when you're being an overprotective nightmare, especially when I'm being an overprotective nightmare. He kissed her once more, softer. Come on, let's get out of here. The medic cleaned and bandaged both of them in the back of an ambulance while Catherine handled Victor's extraction. Dante's shoulder needed stitches, 14 of them, which he bore without flinching while Lena held his good hand. The burns on his palm were worse than he'd admitted, 2nd degree heading toward 3rd, and the medic insisted on wrapping them properly. You should go to a hospital, the medic said. Not happening. Dante flexed his bandaged hand experimentally. This is fine. Sir, you have shrapnel wounds and partial thickness burns. Fine is not the medical term I'd use. Good thing I'm not asking for your medical opinion then. But Dante's tone was more tired than aggressive. Thanks for patching me up. Send the bill to Catherine. Lena's injuries were minor by comparison. Road rash on her palms from hitting the pavement, bruising on her ribs where Victor had pressed the gun. The medic cleaned the scrapes, applied antibiotic ointment, and gave her a lecture about seeking follow-up care that she nodded through without really hearing. You're both disasters, Catherine observed when the medic finally left. And you're both lucky to be alive. Luck had nothing to do with it, Marco said, appearing with coffee that smelled like it had been brewed sometime last year. Boss had a plan. The plan was you staying in the safe house, Dante said, looking at Lena. Not driving into an active hot zone. Plans change. Not when those plans involve keeping you safe. Dante. She took his face in her hands again, making him look at her. I know you want to protect me from everything, and I love you for it, but I'm not going to be someone who sits on the sidelines while you walk into danger. That's not who I am. You could have been killed. So could you. You were literally blown up tonight. That's different. How? Because you're used to it? Because it's your world? She shook her head. I chose you. Which means I chose all of this. The danger, the chaos, the men like Victor. I'm not backing out now just because it got scary. Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her close, careful of both their injuries, and held her like he was trying to memorize the shape of her. You're insane, he muttered into her hair. Probably, but so are you. So we match. Catherine cleared her throat. As touching as this is, we have a situation to resolve. Victor's talking, mostly threats at this point, but he'll break. Question is what you want to do with the information. Dante didn't let go of Lena, but he turned his head to address Catherine. Federal authorities get everything. Names, locations, financial records. Victor flipped on enough people tonight that he's effectively signed his own death warrant with the Volkov Syndicate. Let them clean up their own mess. And if they come after you for giving Victor up, they won't. Victor's liability outweighs any value he had. They'll thank me for removing the problem. He paused. But put extra security on Lena anyway, and my properties, and anyone connected to either of us. I want to know if someone so much as breathes wrong in our direction. Already on it, Catherine made a note on her phone. What about Travis Cole? Lena stiffened. She'd almost forgotten about Travis in the chaos of everything else. What about him? Dante asked, his arm tightening around Lena. He violated the restraining order again. Showed up at Ms. Hart's old apartment building 3 days ago. Super called it in, but by the time police arrived, he was gone. Catherine's expression was grim. He also contacted her mother, told her he just wanted to talk to Lena, that he'd made mistakes, but wanted to make amends. My mother knows not to tell him anything, Lena said quickly. She didn't. She called the police and then called me. Catherine looked at Dante. We have him on surveillance now. He's staying with someone in Queens, unemployed, drinking heavily, making noise about how you stole his girlfriend. I didn't steal anyone. She left because you're an abusive piece of shit. Dante's voice had gone cold again. Marco, you still have contacts in Florida? Yeah, why? Because Travis needs to relocate. Permanently. And I think the Florida Keys are lovely this time of year. Dante's smile was sharp. Find him a job. Construction, fishing boats, whatever. Make it clear that staying in New York is hazardous to his health. And make sure he understands that if he ever contacts Lena or her family again, the next conversation won't be nearly as friendly. Marco grinned. On it, Lena should have objected. Should have insisted they handle Travis legally, through proper channels, without threats or intimidation. But she was so tired of being afraid, tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of Travis casting a shadow over every good thing in her life. Thank you, she said quietly. Dante kissed the top of her head. Anything for you. They finally made it back to Dante's penthouse just before dawn. The city was starting to wake, delivery trucks rumbling through streets, early commuters emerging from subway stations. Lena watched it all from the passenger seat, feeling disconnected from the normal world, like she'd stepped through a door into somewhere darker and couldn't quite find her way back. You're thinking too loud, Dante observed. I'm thinking about how I almost died tonight, and how that's apparently just Tuesday for you. It's not usually this dramatic. That's not reassuring. He pulled into the underground garage, killed the engine. Do you want out? Of this? Of us? Because I'll understand if you do. This is a lot to ask of anyone. Lena turned to look at him fully. He looked wrecked, exhausted, injured, covered in evidence of violence, but his eyes were clear and steady and full of something that looked like hope and terror in equal measure. No, she said. I don't want out. I just want to understand what I'm signing up for. All of it. No more secrets. Okay? He nodded slowly. Then let's go upstairs, and I'll tell you everything. They sat on his couch as the sun rose, and Dante told her the truth. About his father's murder when he was 12, about his mother working 3 jobs to keep them alive, about the first time he took money from someone who needed a problem solved quietly, about building an empire out of violence and leverage and knowing when to push and when to walk away. He told her about the people he'd hurt, the lines he'd crossed, the things he'd done that would send him to prison for life if anyone could prove it. He didn't dress it up, didn't make himself the hero of the story. I'm not a good man, he finished. I've never pretended to be, but I'm trying to be better for you, because you make me want to be someone who deserves you. Lena listened to all of it, and when he was done, she was quiet for a long time. Okay, she finally said. Okay, I'm not going to pretend I'm comfortable with all of that, but I also know that you've never lied to me. You've protected me, helped me, given me space to heal. And tonight, when Victor had a gun to my head, you were willing to trade yourself for me. That matters more than your past. Lena, I'm not finished. She took his bandaged hand carefully. I spent 2 years with someone who told me he loved me while he destroyed me piece by piece. You've spent 6 months showing me what actual love looks like. Actions, not words. So yeah, you've done terrible things, but you're also the person who paid for culinary school, who made sure my mother was safe, who looks at me like I'm something worth protecting instead of something to own. She met his eyes. I choose you, all of you, the good and the bad, and everything in between. His expression cracked, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw Dante Moretti cry. She pulled him close, and they held each other as the sun climbed higher, burning away the night. They slept through most of the day, wrapped around each other like neither could quite believe the other was real. When Lena woke, late afternoon sun was pouring through the windows, and Dante was already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. How long have you been staring at me? She asked, voice rough with sleep. Not long, maybe an hour. That's creepy. Probably. He brushed hair from her face. But I kept thinking about last night, about how close I came to losing you, and I couldn't stop looking just to make sure you were still here. She understood that. Had felt the same thing herself, waking periodically through the day just to check that his chest was still rising and falling, that the bandages on his shoulder hadn't bled through, that he was alive and whole and hers. We're okay, she said. Both of us. We made it. This time. Don't do that. Don't borrow trouble. She shifted closer, ignoring the protest from her bruised ribs. Victor's handled. Travis is being handled. For the first time in a year, I can actually breathe without waiting for the next disaster. You think it's over, isn't it? Dante was quiet for a moment. Victor, yeah. He'll cooperate with the feds, give up his entire network to save his own skin. The Volkov Syndicate will distance themselves from him. That threat's done. But the world I operate in, there's always going to be another Victor, another person who sees you as leverage. So what are you saying? That I should leave? No. I'm saying I can't promise you safety, not the way you deserve. I can promise I'll do everything in my power to protect you, but there's always going to be risk. He met her eyes. I need you to be okay with that. Really okay. Not just saying it because you think it's what I want to hear. Lena considered this. A week ago, the thought of living with that kind of uncertainty would have sent her running. But she'd learned something about herself in that alley with Victor's gun pressed to her head. She was stronger than she'd given herself credit for. Strong enough to survive Travis. Strong enough to walk into danger when someone she loved needed her. Strong enough to build a life on her own terms instead of letting fear make all her choices. I'm okay with it, she said. Not because I like the danger, but because the alternative, a safe, small life without you in it, That's worse. I'd rather have you and the risk than neither. Something in his expression shifted. Relief, maybe. Or recognition that she meant what she said. Okay, he said quietly. Then we do this together. All of it. Together, she agreed. They got up eventually, moving slowly through the penthouse like invalids. Dante's shoulder was stiff despite the painkillers, and Lena's ribs screamed every time she twisted wrong. But they made coffee, ordered takeout because neither of them had the energy to cook, and sat at his kitchen counter pretending normalcy could be reclaimed through small rituals. Catherine called around 7. Victor sang like a canary, she reported, her voice tinny through speakerphone. Federal prosecutors have enough to indict half the Volkov organization. They're offering him witness protection in exchange for testimony. He take it? Dante asked. Enthusiastically. He'll disappear into whatever suburban hell they stash witnesses in, and we'll never hear from him again. She paused. Which means you're clear. No blowback, no retaliation. The Volkovs are too busy trying to contain their own damage to worry about you. Good. Dante glanced at Lena. What about Travis Cole? Marco's handling it. Found him a job on a shrimp boat out of Key West. Made it very clear that leaving the Keys or contacting anyone in New York would result in unfortunate accidents. Cole's scared enough to comply. When does he leave? Tomorrow morning. Marco's personally escorting him to the airport. Catherine's tone turned dry. Your associate is very convincing when he wants to be. That's why I hired him. Dante's hand found Lena's under the table, squeezed gently. Anything else? Your mother called. Wants to know why you haven't visited in 3 weeks. Lena looked at him sharply. You have a mother? Everyone has a mother, Lena. You never mentioned her. Because she lives in New Jersey and thinks I run a consulting firm. He grimaced. She doesn't know about most of my life. I'd prefer to keep it that way. Tell her I'll visit this weekend, Dante said to Catherine, and that I'm bringing someone. Silence on the other end, then, you're bringing Lena to meet your mother. Yeah. That's serious. It is. He looked at Lena. If that's okay with you. She should have been nervous. Meeting the mother was a milestone, a declaration of intent, but all she felt was warmth spreading through her chest. I'd like that, she said. They hung up with Catherine, and Dante immediately looked uncomfortable. My mother's going to have opinions. About everything. Your age, your background, how we met. She's protective. Most mothers are. Mine's especially. After my father died, she decided the world was out to get us. Which wasn't entirely wrong, but it made her suspicious of everyone. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm just warning you. She might be intense. Dante, I survived Travis and Victor and a walk-in freezer. I think I can handle one protective mother. He smiled despite himself. You haven't met her yet. But beneath the deflection, Lena could see what this meant to him, bringing her into the last clean part of his life, the part that didn't know about violence and leverage and men like Marco. It was trust of a different kind. I'll be on my best behavior, she promised. No mentioning criminal enterprises or kidnapping attempts. That would be ideal, yeah. They spent the next few days in recovery mode. Dante worked from home, taking calls from his office while Lena attended her evening classes. The knife skills chef praised her improved technique, and she didn't mention that she'd learned focus by surviving a crisis. Some things didn't translate. Maria texted her constantly, demanding updates and threatening to show up at the penthouse if Lena didn't prove she was alive. Lena sent back a photo of herself on Dante's couch, giving the camera her middle finger with bandaged hands. Maria's response, That's my girl. Also, your boyfriend is hot. Don't let him get exploded again. Working on it, Lena typed back. Tony called to tell her the restaurant had been quiet since Victor's arrest. Guess word got around that the owner doesn't tolerate troublemakers, he said. You coming back to work? Or has Mr. Moretti convinced you to retire early? I'll be back next week. Someone has to keep you from letting the new servers steal all my sections. Fair enough? Take care of yourself, kid. She hung up feeling grounded. Work, school, friends. These were the anchors that kept her tethered to who she'd been before Dante, before Victor, before everything got complicated. She needed them. Saturday came faster than expected. They drove to New Jersey in Dante's car, the one that didn't have bullet holes in the side panels. His mother lived in a tidy house in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be respectable, where lawns were maintained and curtains twitched when unfamiliar cars pulled up. Last chance to run, Dante said, putting the car in park. Not running. Lena smoothed her dress, simple, respectful, nothing that screamed, your son's girlfriend nearly got killed last week. Though I am suddenly very nervous. Yeah, me too. They walked up the front path together, and before Dante could knock, the door flew open. His mother was small, maybe 5'2", with dark hair going silver and eyes that took in everything in a single sweep. She looked at Lena for approximately 3 seconds, then pulled her into a hug that nearly cracked her already bruised ribs. Finally, she said in accented English, he brings someone. I thought maybe he was married to his work forever. Mama, Dante protested, let her breathe. I'm Rosa. She released Lena but kept hold of her hands. You're Lena. He told me about you. Not enough, but something. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Moretti. Rosa. Mrs. Moretti was my mother-in-law and she was terrible. Come inside. I made food. Too much food, probably, but I didn't know what you like. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes and something baking that made Lena's mouth water. Rosa ushered them into a living room that was crowded with photos and religious iconography and furniture that had clearly been loved for decades. Sit, Dante. Help me in the kitchen. Lena, you rest. You look tired. Mama, she's fine. She has circles under her eyes. And you, Rosa poked her son in the chest, you look like you haven't slept in a week. What have you been doing? Work. Rosa made a dismissive sound. Always work. You work too much. This is why you need someone to take care of you. Dante shot Lena an apologetic look before following his mother into the kitchen. Their voices carried, a rapid mix of English and Italian that sounded like an argument, but might have been normal conversation. Lena looked around the living room, studying the photos. Dante as a child, gap-toothed and serious. A man who must have been his father, strong-featured and proud. Rosa through the years, aging in increments, always with that same assessing gaze. There were no photos of Dante after about age 15, like he'd stopped existing to the camera once his father died. Rosa returned with wine and a plate of antipasto. He says you're in culinary school. Yes, ma'am. At the Institute. Good school. Expensive, though. Dante helped with that. Of course he did. He throws money at problems instead of talking about them. Rosa sat down across from Lena, studying her with unnerving intensity. You love my son? The directness of the question caught Lena off guard. Yes, very much. Good. He needs someone to love him, someone who isn't afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him. I can tell. You have strength here, Rosa tapped her own chest. In the heart. That's what he needs. Someone with a strong heart. Mama, you're interrogating her, Dante said, returning with more food. I'm getting to know her. That's different. But Rosa smiled, and it softened her whole face. Sit, eat. Tell me how you met. They told a carefully edited version. Lena working at the restaurant, Dante as a regular customer, a slow progression from strangers to friends to more. They left out Travis, Victor, guns, and everything else that would give Rosa nightmares. But Lena suspected she knew anyway. There was something in the way Rosa looked at her son, a recognition of the shadows he carried. She'd lived through her husband's murder. She understood violence better than Dante probably wanted to admit. Dinner was tremendous. Course after course of food that tasted like love translated into flavors. Lena ate until she couldn't breathe, and Rosa beamed. You appreciate good food. This is important. She glanced at Dante. She's too thin, though. You're not feeding her enough. She feeds herself. She's a better cook than me. Everyone is a better cook than you. You burned water once. I was 12. Still counts. Watching them bicker, Lena felt something settle in her chest. This was family. Messy, loud, unapologetic. Nothing like the quiet tension of her own childhood, where her mother had worked double shifts and they'd eaten dinner in silence. After dinner, Rosa insisted on sending them home with containers of leftovers. She hugged Lena again, fierce and brief. You take care of him, she said quietly. He pretends to be strong, but he's softer than he shows. I know. Good. Rosa pulled back, eyes glistening. You come back. Soon. Don't make me wait another month to see you. I won't. In the car driving back toward the city, Dante was quiet. Your mother's wonderful, Lena said. She liked you. She wouldn't have hugged you twice if she didn't. How can you tell? Because she hated my last girlfriend. Shook her hand once, and that was it. He glanced over. With you, she hugged you before you even said hello. That's acceptance. I'm glad. Lena reached across the console, found his hand. Thank you for bringing me. Thank you for coming. I know it's a lot, meeting family. It's not a lot. It's normal. And I like normal. She squeezed his fingers. We should do more normal things. Dinners with your mother, movies, walking through parks without checking for assassins. He laughed. That does sound nice. So let's do it. Let's build a life that isn't just crisis management. Deal. They made it work. The next few months fell into a rhythm that felt almost ordinary. Lena finished her semester at the institute with top marks, her instructors noting her exceptional palate and technical precision. She picked up more shifts at Aurelio's, not because she needed the money. Dante had tried, repeatedly, to just support her financially, and she'd refused every time, but because she liked the work, liked the controlled chaos of service, the satisfaction of a job well done. Dante scaled back some of his more dangerous dealings, focusing on the legitimate businesses he'd built as cover. The restaurants, the real estate, the consulting firm that actually did consult sometimes. He still took calls from people who needed problems solved quietly, but he was more selective now, more careful. I have something to lose now, he explained one night, lying in bed with Lena's head on his chest. That changes the calculation. You're not going completely straight, though. No, but I'm being smarter about it. He ran his fingers through her hair. There's a difference between taking calculated risks and being reckless. They had their first real fight in December. It started over something stupid. Lena had mentioned wanting to visit her mother for Christmas, and Dante had immediately started making security arrangements like she was traveling into a war zone instead of suburban New Jersey. I don't need a security detail to visit my own mother, she'd snapped. Travis is still out there, scared, yeah, but desperate people do stupid things. Travis is in Florida on a shrimp boat. Marco confirmed it. Marco confirmed he got on a plane to Florida. That doesn't mean he stayed there. So what? I'm just never supposed to go anywhere alone? Never have privacy? Never make a decision without running it through your threat assessment first? Her voice had risen. I'm not your possession, Dante. I'm a person with a life. I know that. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you're trying to put me in a cage and call it protection. The words had hit him like a physical blow. She'd seen it in his face, the way he'd stepped back. I'm not trying to cage you, he'd said quietly. I'm trying to keep you alive. And I'm trying to live. There's a difference. They'd stared at each other across his living room, both breathing hard, both hurt. You're right, Dante had finally said. I'm being controlling. I'm treating you like an asset to protect instead of a person who makes her own choices. I'm sorry. The apology had caught her off guard. Travis had never apologized, not once, not even when she'd been bleeding. I'm sorry too, she'd said, for yelling, for comparing you to a cage. You're nothing like, you're not him, I know. But sometimes the fear makes me act like I don't trust you to take care of yourself. And that's not fair. They'd worked it out. Set boundaries, compromises. Lena would let him know her travel plans, but she wouldn't accept security unless there was a credible threat. Dante would consult her before making decisions that affected her life, not just inform her after the fact. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Catherine checked in regularly, updating them on Victor's cooperation with the feds. He's given up everyone, she reported in January. The Volkov syndicate is in pieces. Half their leadership is under indictment. The other half has fled the country. Any blowback our way? Dante asked. None. You're clean. As clean as you can be, anyway. Catherine's tone turned wry. Though I'd recommend staying out of Brighton Beach for the foreseeable future. Wasn't planning on it. Travis's situation resolved itself in February. Marco called with the news. Cole got himself arrested. Bar fight in Key West. Put a guy in the hospital. Looking at assault charges, maybe attempted murder if the victim doesn't make it. Lena felt nothing hearing this. Not relief, not satisfaction. Just Emptiness where fear used to be. What happens to him now? She asked. Florida prison, probably. 5 to 10 if he's lucky, life if he's not. Marco paused. Either way, he's not your problem anymore. She hung up and sat very still, processing. You okay? Dante asked. I don't know. I thought I'd feel something. Happy, maybe. Vindicated, but I just feel tired. That's normal. He took 2 years of your life. You don't get that time back just because he's facing consequences. Do you think he'll ever understand what he did to me? No. Men like Travis don't do introspection. They do excuses. Dante pulled her close. But you don't need him to understand. You just need to be free of him. And now you are. She let herself believe that. Spring came slowly, the city shaking off winter in increments. Lena turned 27 in March, and Dante threw her a party at Aurelio's, small, intimate, just her classmates from the institute, the restaurant staff, Rosa, Catherine, and Marco. Maria got drunk and gave a speech about how Lena had gone from sad Jane Austen character to badass who survived multiple murder attempts, which was both mortifying and accurate. To Lena, Tony toasted, raising his glass, who proved you can rebuild yourself into someone stronger than you were before. They all drank to that. Later, after everyone had left and it was just her and Dante cleaning up, he pulled a small box from his pocket. This isn't what you think it is, he said quickly, seeing her expression. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm terrible at this. Lena's heart hammered. Dante, just open it. Inside was a key, plain, silver, attached to a keychain that said, home. It's to the penthouse, Dante explained, suddenly nervous in a way she'd never seen him. You're already there most nights anyway, and I know you like your own place, but I thought, if you wanted, you could officially move in, make it ours instead of mine. You want me to move in with you? Yes. If you want to, no pressure. You can keep your apartment if you need the space, or we can find somewhere new together. Or, she kissed him to shut him up. Yes, she said when they broke apart. Yes, I'll move in with you. I want to make it ours. His smile was bright enough to light the room. They made it official in April, Lena slowly transferring her life into the penthouse. It was strange at first, merging her thrifted furniture with his expensive taste, her clutter with his minimalism. But they made it work, found compromises, created space that felt like both of them. Rosa visited once and immediately started rearranging things. You need more light here, and this couch faces the wrong direction. And where are the photos? You should have photos. By the time she left, the penthouse looked more lived in, more like a home. Your mother's a force of nature, Lena observed. You're just realizing this now? In May, Lena graduated from the institute, top of her class, with job offers from 3 different restaurants. She turned them all down. I want to work for myself, she told Dante. Not right away. I need more experience. But eventually, I want my own place. Something small, intimate, where I control the menu and the atmosphere and everything. Then we'll make it happen, he said simply. Whatever you need. She believed him, because that's what they'd built together. Trust. The kind that survived gunfire and kidnapping and all the ways the world tried to break them. The kind that said, I see your darkness and I choose you anyway. The kind that made space for both of them to grow instead of shrinking to fit. The proposal came in June. They were at his mother's house, helping her plant tomatoes in the backyard. Rosa was lecturing them about proper spacing and soil pH, and Dante was pretending to pay attention while clearly not listening. You're not doing it right, Rosa scolded. Lena, show him. Lena knelt in the dirt, demonstrating the correct depth and spacing. When she looked up, Dante was watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. Marry me, he said. Rosa dropped her trowel. What? Lena managed. Marry me. Be my wife. Let me be your husband. All of it. He wasn't kneeling, wasn't presenting a ring, just stood there covered in dirt with his heart in his eyes. I love you. I want to build a life with you. I want to fight with you and make up with you and grow old with you. I want everything. Dante, you don't have to answer now. I don't even have a ring yet. I couldn't wait. I've been trying to find the perfect moment, but there isn't one. There's just this, you and me and my mother's tomato garden. He smiled, self-deprecating. Romantic, right? It's perfect, Lena said, and realized she was crying. Yes, yes, I'll marry you. Rosa shrieked and pulled them both into a hug, getting dirt all over everyone. Finally, she said. I thought maybe you'd never ask. I was about to do it for you. They laughed, the three of them tangled together in a garden in New Jersey, and Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years, completely, utterly safe. Not because the world had become gentle. It hadn't. There would always be dangers, always be risks, always be the possibility that Dante's past would reach for them. But they were stronger than that past, stronger together than anything that tried to break them apart. The ring came a week later. Simple, elegant, a single diamond set in platinum. Dante slipped it on her finger in the middle of his kitchen while she was making breakfast, and she started crying again. You need to stop doing surprise romantic things while I'm cooking, she said, wiping her eyes. The eggs are going to burn. Forget the eggs. I will not forget the eggs. These are good eggs. He laughed and kissed her, and the eggs did burn, but neither of them cared. They set a date for October. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Rosa immediately took over planning, and Lena let her because it made Rosa happy, and honestly, Lena didn't care about centerpieces or seating charts. She just cared about the part where she got to marry Dante. Tony offered Aurelio's for the reception, and they accepted. It felt right, closing the circle. The place where Dante had first seen her, where Travis had tried to drag her back, where she'd learned what it meant to be protected instead of possessed. Full circle, Maria said when Lena told her. From waitress to co-owner's fiancé. That's some Cinderella shit. I'm not Cinderella. No, you're better. You saved yourself before the prince showed up. He just made things easier. That felt more accurate. The wedding happened on a perfect October day, crisp and clear with leaves turning gold. Lena wore a simple dress, nothing dramatic, and carried wildflowers instead of roses. Dante wore a suit that somehow made him look both dangerous and domestic. Rosa cried through the entire ceremony. Marco stood as Dante's best man, looking uncomfortable in formal wear but happy in a way Lena had never seen him. Catherine helped coordinate everything with military precision. Maria caught the bouquet and immediately tried to give it back. They said their vows in front of 40 people, promising to love each other through chaos and calm, through danger and peace, through everything the world threw at them. I choose you, Lena said, looking into Dante's eyes. Every day, in every way, for as long as we both live. I choose you too, Dante replied, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. They kissed, and the room erupted in applause, and Lena thought, this is what winning looks like. Not perfection, not a life without scars, just two people who refused to let trauma write their ending. The reception was exactly what they wanted. Good food, good wine, good people. Lena's mother had come, cautious but warming throughout the night. She pulled Lena aside before dinner. He's good to you? She asked. The best. Then I'm happy for you, baby. You deserve good. Her mother's eyes were damp. I'm sorry I wasn't there when things were bad with Travis. I should have. You didn't know. I hid it well. Lena squeezed her mother's hand. But I'm okay now. Better than okay. I can see that. Her mother smiled. You're stronger, brighter, like you found yourself again. I did. And then I found him too. They danced until midnight, Lena's feet aching in heels she should have abandoned hours ago. Dante held her close, swaying to music that was too fast for slow dancing, but they didn't care. You happy? He asked. Deliriously. Good. He kissed her temple. That's all I want. You happy. You have me. All of me. And I'm not going anywhere. Even when I'm being an overprotective nightmare? Especially then. They left the reception around 1, sneaking out through the kitchen while everyone else was distracted by cake. Marco drove them to the penthouse, their home now, officially, and left them at the door with a rare smile. Congrats, boss. Lena, you're good together. Thanks, Marco, for everything. He nodded and drove off, and they were alone. Inside, the penthouse was exactly as they'd left it that morning. Lena kicked off her heels, Dante loosened his tie, and they collapsed onto the couch together. We did it, Lena said. We did. I'm your wife now. Yeah, how's that feel? She considered. Right. It feels right. Good. He pulled her closer. Because you're stuck with me now. Till death do us part and all that. I can live with that. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through the windows. The same view Lena had seen that first night when Dante had brought her here, terrified and broken and running from Travis. She'd thought then that this was temporary, a stopgap, a moment of safety before she had to figure out the rest of her life. She'd been wrong. This was her life, this man, this home, this hard-won peace. You know what I realized? She said. What? I spent so long thinking strength meant doing everything alone, not needing anyone, not asking for help. Like independence was the same thing as isolation. She turned to look at him. But that's not strength. That's just fear with better marketing. So what is strength? This. Choosing to build something with someone else. Letting yourself be vulnerable. Trusting that the person who sees all your broken parts will help you put them back together instead of using them against you. She took his hand. You taught me that. You already knew it. You just needed someone to prove it was safe to try again. Maybe he was right. Maybe the strength had always been there, buried under layers of survival instinct and trauma. Maybe all she'd needed was space to remember who she was before Travis had tried to erase her. And maybe that was the real lesson, that healing wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about finding your way back to who you'd always been underneath the damage. She'd been a chef before Travis convinced her to quit. She was a chef again now, with plans to open her own place in the spring. She'd been independent before he'd made her believe she couldn't survive alone. She was independent again, choosing partnership instead of having it forced on her. She'd been strong before he'd tried to break her. She was strong now, just in different ways. I'm glad you didn't give up on me, she said quietly, when I was scared and pushing you away. I'm glad you stayed. I told you, I'm not going anywhere. Dante's expression was soft. You're it for me, Lena. The only person who's ever made me want to be better instead of just more powerful. You are better. I'm trying. That's the best I can do. And wasn't that the truth for both of them? They were both trying, both learning how to love without fear, how to trust without testing, how to build something that didn't require armor. They were both imperfect people, figuring it out as they went. But they were figuring it out together. 2 years later, Lena stood in her restaurant, small, intimate, exactly what she'd dreamed, and watched the dinner service with satisfaction. Every table full, the kitchen running smoothly, her staff working like the well-oiled machine she'd trained them to be. Hearts had opened 6 months ago to reviews that called her a chef to watch and a fresh voice in New York dining. The menu changed seasonally, focused on simple ingredients prepared with precision. Nothing fancy, nothing that tried to be more than it was. Just good food, made with care. Dante sat at table 12. Their table, always reserved for him, reading a book, and occasionally glancing up to watch her work. He still came every Thursday. Some habits didn't break. Rosa had cried at the opening, proud enough to burst. Catherine had ensured the restaurant's security was airtight. Marco had scared off a health inspector who'd tried to shake them down for bribes. Travis, according to the last update Lena had received, was serving 8 years in a Florida prison. He'd written her once, a rambling letter about forgiveness and second chances. She'd burned it without finishing it. Some doors stayed closed. Victor had disappeared into witness protection, his entire empire dismantled. The Volkov syndicate was effectively defunct, scattered to other cities and other countries. The threats had faded, not because the world became safe, but because they'd built something stronger than fear. After service ended, Lena joined Dante at table 12 with 2 glasses of wine. Good night? He asked. Great night. We turned away 30 walk-ins. That's my wife, taking over the culinary world one reservation at a time. Your wife. She still liked the sound of that. How's your book? Pretentious. I hate it. I'm only finishing it because my mother gave it to me. Lena laughed. Rosa has terrible taste in literature. She has excellent taste in daughters-in-law, though. Flattery will get you everywhere. They sat together in the empty restaurant, surrounded by the evidence of what they'd built. Not just the physical space, but the life they'd created. Messy, complicated, hard-won, real. You ever think about where we'd be if we'd never met? Lena asked. Sometimes. I'd probably still be doing the same things, making money, making enemies, not really living. He looked at her. You? I'd probably still be running, New city, new name, same fear. She took his hand. I'm glad we met, even with everything that came with it. Me too. They finished their wine in comfortable silence, then locked up and walked home together through the city's streets. Past the restaurant where she'd worked as a waitress. Past the building where she'd hidden in a safe house. Past all the places that marked their history. When they reached the penthouse, Lena paused in the entryway and looked around. At the photos Rosa had insisted they hang. At the furniture they'd picked out together. At the life they'd built from the wreckage of what came before. You know what I think? She said. What? I think we won. Not because everything's perfect, but because we're happy. And that's better than perfect. Dante pulled her close, kissed her forehead. Yeah, we won. And standing there in the home they'd made, surrounded by evidence of survival and strength and stubborn refusal to let the past dictate their future, Lena finally, fully believed it. They hadn't just survived, they'd thrived. They'd taken broken pieces and built something whole. They'd chosen each other, again and again, through every test and trial. And in the end, that choice, that daily deliberate decision to love despite the risks, that was the real victory. Not the absence of danger, not the elimination of fear, but the courage to build a life anyway, together.